Close enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Hey, we're getting ready to start the herb walk here in Forrest Bluff Park. And looks like we got a nice sized crowd and a beautiful first day of the new year. And found a bunch of nice plants. For those of you who can't join us out here, you can join along here. And, one more exciting herb walk. That's it. He was with us at Sweetwater when we did the thing up there. I was going to say, let's and if anybody wants to email us, this has the Latin and common name.
We'll send the paper to you.
So traditionsherbschool@gmail. We'll probably add a few more on there because wandering around this morning, we found a couple of new ones. Hey, Corey, what up, man? Hope you're not too cold up there.
I'll tag the video with the stuff we talked about.
And
I'm pretty good about capturing.
Anybody wants to grab a flyer, feel free to. We don't have pens for anybody, so you're on your own with that.
So yeah, if anybody wants a flyer, and I'm going to take the clipboard with us, and anything that's extra, I'll put down. I'll also email it to you if you don't want to touch it. That's okay.
Yeah, it's just one page.
So just that one.
Fresh off the printer. So sorry for all of you who aren't here live and in person. You're missing out on some fresh Wayusa we made this morning. Renee got up early and what you need, hun? Got up early this morning and made some Wayusa. It's not our usual dark mud that we make, but a nice morning wake up for anybody who isn't quite here yet.
So this is cold up hot if you want some. Bob normally puts it in his coffee, no problem.
Yeah, you don't get all the purity of the taste, but you still get the kick of the caffeine. I have no shame.
So let me babble. Okay, we're right at 10. So let's
Yep.
go ahead and do this.
Yeah, grab
I say that as I see two people walking in.
Okay, we'll give those two people a minute.
Okay, you guys.
Who knows what we'll see.
To let these people get up here, and I'll babble for us one more time. I'll officially introduce us.
And there was like 2 or 3 more we found this morning wandering around. We're like, oh crap, we forgot to put that on there.
A-I-Y. Say it. It's here right now. They're sharing it. I'll tell you when the walk's done. Yeah, so G-U-A-Y. Sometimes it's G-U-I. It's like American spelling G-U-I, but it's G-U-A-Y.
It's people.
The letter for it, the actual titular letter for it, G-U-A is just one letter. Like we have to put those together to make the one sound. Yeah. The G-U-A-Y-U-S-A.
Wayusa.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started because we're past time and everyone's just going to have to hold their butt up here.
And if anybody's just walking up, wants a flyer with a lot of the plant names and stuff on it. Yep, grab one.
So on the back of Bob's truck, we have a traditional morning drink from the Amazon for you. It's called Wayusa. And we have cold and hot. If you want some, it's sitting here. And I'm going to introduce us.
Don't block the driveway.
So my name is Renee. I'm a clinical practicing herbalist and a traditional healer. And this is Bob Lindy. And he's also a clinical practicing herbalist and acupuncturist and a traditional healer. And on the first of the year, for years, we have done plant walks for everyone because we thought it was a good juxtapose to let's start the year off right. It's like New You Monday. So here we're gonna try again today.
For all of you who didn't party too hard and actually managed to get up here at 10 a.m.
So we'll help you.
That's right.
So I'll tell you real quick about Wayusa, and then also we have a handout of what we mostly can find in this park and talk about. If we talk about things that aren't on the handout, Well, I'll tag them in the video and make sure that's
Oh, that's a good idea.
And if you need to email us about something, then do. If you don't want to touch the handout because other people have touched it, I'll email it out to everybody. Whoever responds to us, you'll get an email back.
Yeah, you just have to email the school at traditionsherbschool.com or at gmail.com, and we'll send out the flyer for anybody who needs it. For any of you online.
So if anybody wants to try the Wayusa, I have it sitting here traditionally the way it would be on the Amazon River. You'd pick a pack that was like this. That's how it comes off the river. If anybody wants to try it, there's cups here, and it's cold and hot, and it's no more of anything than just black tea, just drinking tea. And so you don't have to worry about contraindications or anything like that. If you can drink tea, Camellia sinensis, then you're fine. And so that's warm over here, and it's cold in the plastic jugs, and there's cups for you, and it would be the thing that we would use in the morning to discuss plants and what was going on from the night before. The tribes would sit around drinking it. And so we bring it to our community gatherings so that it brings everybody together.
So many people.
And what needs to be said gets said for each person. And so there's that, and I'm going to repeat it one more time because there's still people walking out. Hey!
Handouts right here.
The handouts are right here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is the last time, I promise. I'm going to say it one more time.
Good luck with that.
Hey, I'm Renee, and this is Bob Lindy, and we are doing your
Hey.
plant walk. We're clinical practicing herbalists and traditional healers. There's handouts out here. If you don't want to touch them, I'll email them to you, no problem. We will talk about more than what's on the handout. And then this is Wayusa that's on the tailgate. This is traditionally what it looks like coming out of the jungle. It's hanging there. And this is in the plastic is cold, and the metal is hot or warm. And it's served in the morning at community gatherings. So in a tribal setting, we'd all wake up together when we were going to go out and do what we were doing for our day. We would be discussing plants and animals and hunting and gathering. And we would be sitting around talking about our dreams and how it's going. And so we bring it to our community gatherings so you guys can be in the same mind as we go and look at medicine that's in the earth. Feel free to have it all that you want. The two metal ones are warm. The two plastic ones are cold because we wouldn't put warm in plastic. And so feel like you can have any of that. You can come back to it. You can scoop it out of the pot with the glass jar, no problem.
And I'll talk about the Wayusa. It is the national drink of Ecuador. And theoretically, it's very difficult to propagate. I've magically and mysteriously about 5 plants showed up in my yard that I'm experimenting with growing it. And believe it or not, I got them from France. Go figure. But I hope to have those propagated by April. And Wayusa is interesting. It's actually, this is weak. Normally we would start it the night before, but we forgot. And you would actually bring it to a boil, leave it on the stove, turn the heat off with the lid on, let it sit overnight, and then bring it back to a boil, adding more water if you need to, until it's this black, thick liquid that still doesn't taste bitter. And it's a very odd little guy that any other herb, tea, whatever, that you would boil twice and let sit for 12 plus hours, you wouldn't be able to drink it. It's so bitter.
And when we take people down, there's a pot on the fire, because we're in the jungle, and it never comes off, and it never gets changed out. Just more gets added to it. So it's something that we would cook and cook and cook and cook infinitely and just keep changing it. There's never not a pot going. That's how important it is for them to have communication and for everybody to be on the same page.
So I think we've stalled long enough to get the stragglers in. So couple of questions. Obviously I know some of y'all's faces. How many of you have never been on an herb walk before? Not even with us. All right, cool. All right, awesome.
Nice.
So one of the things I always say with this, challenge by choice. Yes, dogs walk by here. There was a heavy mist this morning, so most of it's clean, pee sterile.
The rule of thumb in harvesting in Florida is don't harvest anything that's lower than a dog's leg, and that's like the safety. But we eat stuff here in this place all the time. It's a safe place for us.
So one of the things I encourage you all to look at it on the ground, take a picture. Nibble on it. If you have a lot of food sensitivities or allergies, you may want to just taste it or smell it and then just throw it down on the ground. If it's gross, it's totally appropriate to take it and go, yeah, that's gross, and throw it down. That's okay. what I tell most people is, if you remember 1 or 2 plants from today, you kicked ass. You just got to go on a lot of plant walks with a lot of different people, and then every time you go, if you went once a month and you learned 1 or 2 plants, in the space of a year, you'd really have a good grasp of a lot of different plants. When we're done with the walk, I encourage you to go back and find that plant again on your own. If you find it tomorrow, you'll know that plant for the rest of your life.
So I want to repeat that because it's like drum circle etiquette, plant walk etiquette. Perfectly acceptable to be like, I'm not putting this thing in my mouth. If you see Bob and I put it in our mouth, it's food. You can eat it, 100%. If you are an allergy-prone person, rubbing it on the inside of your arm and looking for red, or on the inside of your lip and looking for a tingle would be the way to tell you were going to react and tell us if something's wrong, or come and get me. We station ourselves so that I can repeat what he said when we're in a big group. And so just say to me, I'm taking this medicine, is it okay? Or something like that, like privately if you want to come ask me. The other thing is, it's completely appropriate to throw it down, to spit it out, to think it's gross, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You don't have to hold the sacred piece we gave you. Well, because it's nice to talk about it. I've been on plant walks like earlier on, 20 years ago, where I've been like, I don't know what to do with it.
And I'll also say, after you're done with this, if you're not sure about the identification of a plant, don't eat it.
There are so many look-alike things, and we're going to do a really good job not to show you the look-alike so you can't confuse it. And so that's something that we talked about today. We like to point out, especially with the herbalists, the pitfalls. But when you're brand new, it's like it's confusing which one's right.
Lots of green things.
So we're going to go with the one that this is correct. And so if you can identify that one, then that one's correct.
I'd also say, yay, COVID. We are outdoors, so mask, no mask, whatever. In a perfect world, I see lots of groups of folks. So, you're in the same household, always together, then please, hug each other. Do your best to keep a 6-foot distance just to be extra safe. And because we don't want anybody to get sick. Although we're going to talk about some herbs that might be helpful.
Bob and I have our masks down some of the time. We both have horrendous allergies, and we both totally eat stuff we're not supposed to. And so we're both, so we both are looking like, do as we say, not as we do. So you're gonna hear me coughing. It's the asthma, I promise.
And I always got to ask this: any Chinese medicine, herb students, acupuncture students? Okay. All right, awesome. All right. I'll say Chinese names of a lot of the stuff we'll see. So
really hard to include.
There's a bunch of these that we look at. I wrote some of them on the form as well on the handout, but a lot of this is also in your Medica book. This is in Bensky and Chen. So it's super cool when you can actually see it live and in person.
So ask along that lines as well. We'll try to do as much as possible. You guys feel free to come back and get the Wayusa if you need drinks. The other thing is, this is the rest of the hot, so if you need to scoop in here because we run out, then do it. But this is cold, that's hot.
Question.
Yo.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned look-alike plants or herbs. Mm-hmm. The ones that is good and edible, are there some look-alikes that look almost the same that are maybe poisonous or not good for you?
The proper word for the plants in Florida are toxic. Because poison's like relative. Like I could probably kill you with rosemary if I wanted to. Because I know how to do it.
Take a lot of rosemary, but
yeah, it takes a lot, but I could do it. Yeah, and so there are things that will make your stomach upset or give you a rash. So we're gonna make sure that you know. So there are ones, and there's stuff here. There's one I can think of in particular that if you ate it, your stomach would ache instead of it being nourishing and giving food to you. And so we're gonna do our very best to not point out any of the ones that were close to it. So there are some lookalikes, but we'll say.
And some of them, like you learned the Spanish needle, the Bidens, the little daisy white flower. There's a lookalike that's also medicine that has a different purpose. And so it won't kill you. We stick with pretty easy to recognize ones, and we try to give you some key indicators. And looking at the leaf, the edge of the leaf margin, the stem, the smell, the taste, are those things that kind of start to give you clues. Flowers, seeds, those things will give you clues to go, oh yeah, that's that.
Right. I remember when you were at Sweetwater, you said the stem, if it has like a little white piece, don't eat it.
Right? Yeah, the white sap is, unless you're 100% sure what it is, white sap usually indicates some toxic. Yeah, the one you got poisoned with.
I saw the one, I poisoned myself with one of them, and I saw it. I was like, oh.
Like the hospital poison. So, if anybody needs a flyer, there's still a few left.
And we'll email.
We're going to go this way.
So there's flyers. If you don't want to touch them, I'll email them to you. There's also hand sanitizer if you need it.
All right. I know this is your baby. Oh.
Grab me in the back if you guys need anything repeated. Do you want me to hold it, or do you want to just hold it and talk because you're good with it?
Yeah, and I think you probably have more to talk about cedar than I do.
Okay.
This is cedar.
Yeah, we're gonna mix plants and trees.
Ooh,
And you guys can get
behind
behind us if you need to, because we thought it was going to be cold, and it's going to be like a balmy.
Lovely. This is why we live in Florida.
Yes.
For all of you folks up north, come on, shorts, barefoot, shirts off. Hell yeah! It's January 1st.
Anywhere, I had 3 shirts on this morning to tell you guys, like, I'm from Florida. Anywhere that you have anything that's in the cedar family, they're going to be used this way. For the Chinese, in the Ayurvedic Medica, the herb of commerce is called thuja. That's its Latin name. One of the things we're going to talk about when we do this is that
Sibaye.
it's really important that you start to think about Latin names versus common names if you're going to use this for medicine and food, because it matters. Now, that being said, the cedar family is a juniper family. Anything in the juniper family, on every continent that any juniper grows, they're going to say this. The tribe of commerce.
There's things behind you that you don't want to step.
Thank you. It's going to say similar things than what I'm going to say. The first thing is, it's our strongest ceremony native plant that we have, besides one other one that it's in our yard, but it's not here. So it's the grandfather plant. It's the thing that we would use for clearing an area or clearing a sick house or bathing somebody off that had a fever. But from a medicinal standpoint, it's an antiseptic, it's an analgesic, it's an antidyne, which means it's a topical and internal painkiller. At some point, it will bring blood to the surface, so it's considered to be a rubefacient. It will kill any germ. So you could take a stick, which we'll talk about later with oak, and brush your teeth with it, make a gargle with it. It will cinch up any kind of bleeding.
Here, don't taste this one, but just grab that one. But you can give it a smell.
If you burned it, which is called smudging, out into the air or boiled it in a pot,
I just don't eat this one.
But also spiritually for a sick house. That's what we
don't eat, just pass it along, give it a smell.
The branches of it would be used to put into another formula and wash and bathe somebody that was sick or had a fever or had an internal sickness, like something that was bothering them emotionally. So it's something that's always for us and provided for us, and it's considered to be a grandfather plant. Like you think about a grandfather protecting you.
I was going to say, one of the things, we hear a lot, well, hopefully you're hearing a lot in the news, that sage has been over-harvested, the desert sage that people use to cleanse their house, to smudge and all of that. And sage does not grow here, desert sage.
Say, like huge news flash,
yeah.
We're not the desert. We're using the desert plants. Like, this plant knows what our bodies are feeling because it's in the same weather as us. We'd be using the plants that knew what was going on with us.
So this side of the Mississippi River, this becomes that overall clean stuff, start ceremonies, end ceremonies. Wash the counter.
Yeah.
And the reality, both of us have worked with some Cherokee healers and Cherokee ceremony. This was the #1 plant that was used by the Cherokee, which was one of the dominant tribes on this side of the Mississippi.
In sweat, to wash people off, to clean internal and external, this is the thing to go to.
Debbie.
Now, that being said, it's cedar. But this being said, anything in the juniper family, because this is in the juniper family, would be considered that, because one of the questions I get is the Sibaye is specifically thuja, which is a certain one. And I was going to ask you, what I just said, does that hold true for your Chinese?
I mean,
like a blood mover, like if there was a bruise.
Oddly, stops bleeding usually.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Stop.
Well,
yeah, it can be.
Like any of the trees that we talked to you about, if you can get it, the sap and get it onto because it's an antiviral.
Right. Yeah, because all your warts are, I think all your warts are viral in nature, and so you put on something
and
knocks
your
that
herb
sugar
of
back.
commerce, because Ayurvedic usually follows, like you guys are usually your herb of commerce is the needles, the sap the sappy needles or
Yeah.
the bark as well?
No, we just use the needles.
Sappy needles.
Yeah.
So we would, as a traditional in Florida, my family's been here for several hundred years before we were a country. They've been here. We would have used all parts differently. So even the seeds, like you think about juniper. I'll grab some and show you. Even the little balls, the seeds are on
It
them.
got passed around.
Yeah, each part would be used differently, and the bark in particular for smudging or clearing the house.
And if you think about it, like we make cedar closets, cedar chests, it keeps
Chase away
the
pests.
right. And
Yeah.
so those can be physical little bugs and moths and stuff, or they can be spiritual, energetic pests as well. So bonus any way you slice it.
And the gargle with it too. That's a good one. Is there questions about it? Yeah.
You.
So how does this cedar differ from the cedars that we have up in North Georgia?
So literally, technically, it doesn't. But everybody will argue it.
Josh, what up?
everybody will argue it. Like we're gonna have a broadleaf, a flatleaf. You're going to have
The red
orientation,
and the white
red versus
cedars.
not, red and white. But if you go, we're trained extensively in North American indigenous cultures. It doesn't matter who you talk to. If there's a juniper or a cedar, it doesn't matter how small the tribe is.
But
the tribe
yeah.
always thinks that one's the right one. Even if on the
That's
other
the
side of
truth.
That one's the right one. And they always use them the same way we just said. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to give you guys the freedom of the broadness of the juniper family, which has all the cedars in it. So the smell will be intensely different. But this morning I gathered up. If limbs fall, I will come and collect them because it's like an offering.
Yeah, we have neighbors who trim their trees and they
And
just
they'll
dump it all in the
come
front of the
I don't
driveway.
know who it is. I'll have a pile in the front
It's
because
awesome.
Everybody in the neighborhood knows the crazy woman's going to burn stuff. And so they'll bring stuff down for me. But I burnt some this morning because the argument, especially if you've gotten to travel, is the scents are completely different. Like the thuja is the proper one that you're used to smelling. So if you get one that's thuja, the cibaye in the clinic. But if I burnt some this morning to be like, hey, I wanted to see what this guy was smelling like right now, and it was just magnificent, and you would recognize it, not the thuja that you're going to get up there. So technically not different, just slightly variated.
I'm Cherokee.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is a very sacred tree.
Yeah.
So one of our leaders, so one of my elders is her grandfather is Crosland Smith, who is the head of the First Nations Church for all of the continent of North America. And he's the child of Redbird Smith, who brought the stomp grounds back after we got sent to reservations. And she wouldn't hesitate if I brought this in the house. Like she stayed with us at our home that's right back there, and she wouldn't even think different about this being. She would know it was different, but she would understand and not have a problem with it.
Hey, Pete.
And our other, it's Eastern Band, Western Band, our other elder, same deal. He stayed here as well and would not think twice about me using this versus a traditional one from up north or wherever they are right now. Yeah. Okay. So he absolutely. We just had him here, and he purposely took me out because my family's been here for 300-ish years, 300 plus, in Florida, and he took me out and said, "What would they say about this? What would they say about this?" And so not.
And he taught us a few that were like, we didn't know it did that.
So it's a nice to get that congruency, and I don't want anyone ever like if you know it to be right, then you own that and you stand in that, and it's just different. It's just the other side of the mountain. Yeah, so good because you're here now on this, in this peninsula, which is Florida, and we're standing, you guys. We're standing in an area that was an entire Native American village, and considered to be protected. There's a
Ceremonial mound.
ceremonial mound right around the area, but this whole peninsula right here, like literally the ground we're on right now, was a huge village, and it's something that these trees have been here since then, and they would have easily.
I've got to say something. So those branches those little pieces of branches, we walk out here all the time looking at stuff. There was just the right amount of those that had fallen on the ground. I didn't pick those.
Yeah, we don't.
They were fresh ones that literally dropped from the branches because I'm not that tall.
This is the hardwood version.
I'll find something.
Yes, all your cedars are hardwood, I believe.
There's the western red, which is using guitar work, which is a conifer.
So
And that's where the confusion comes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would consider them all hardwoods, but they may be in that family.
Rick, this is like this. There's an argument about that because if you get this is considered to be a conifer. If you get the balls off of it, it is a cone.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's an
Even though that
evergreen.
big,
Yeah.
If you see the layers that are on it, there's a huge argument about it, and they don't separate it once it gets into the order. Like they're in the same orders across the band, even though it's not the same as the ones that are out west.
Yeah.
For sure. The other thing is for everybody, there's several in the park they're all different. So there's a juniper we're gonna look at. same deal. Like I could say the same thing, and we're going to show them to you. So there's one that's right in front of us that looks completely different. That's clearly a juniper. It uses the same exact way. And there's one in a direct line that way, same way. Okay, Bob's trying to get on.
Come on this way. Oak is our next one. A little baby oak. We try to take into account shade. Doesn't always happen, but.
So I know that you
Hey,
have a
Brooke,
lot
I'll
to
try to
say
go back. Yeah.
about
if
this.
you want to hold.
Yeah.
So, we didn't plan on it being a tree walk, but it's going to kind of seem like that. We're going to get to
We'll get to plants. We're going to go right to one right now, but
so,
another tree.
So this is a baby oak, and it's so funny. So often we go out for herb walks. We think about plants. We're all looking like this. We're surrounded by these beautiful our elders, the trees, and they're oftentimes some of the strongest medicine we have out there. And the trick is, I don't want to chop a tree down in order to harvest the medicine. So a lot of times we'll look at actually pruning or trimming a tree to maintain it, and that we can use branches from that in order to use it so we're not hurting or destroying the tree. But I always like to talk about oak, and you'll see that white oak is the herb of commerce. All the oaks are the same as far as I'm concerned. We see that with a lot of things. There's the one that's in the book, and then there's the ones that grow in your backyard that we can use for medicine. Usually they work just as well, if not better. One of the things that I'm not a reductionist when it comes to herbal medicine, whereas we talk about the tannins in this, and that's the active component. It is a component. It's one of thousands, tens of thousands of chemicals in here. And we find very different results from using oak for medicine than we do, say, black tea, which also has tannins. So with this, what we find is it's called an astringent herb. It tightens up the tissues. It's specific, sorry, I know it's a little early for some folks. It's very specific for burning loose diarrhea, especially like after food poisoning or something, making a strong tea of the inner bark. And I would argue, I'm not going to chop that. While I'm sick, I'm not going to go out and harvest a tree, strip it off, boil it. I'm literally going to just go and get whatever I can grab. The leaves just aren't as strong as the inner bark of this. But the one thing I like this for all the time, and I wish I don't... Huh? Yes, and I don't think Alora's here.
No, she's not.
Okay, well, maybe she's online or something. So one of our students, our senior students and our Chinese students, we take them out camping 24 hours out in the woods and experience things a little bit differently than we do in the classroom. And she forgot her toothbrush. And I always tell the story of, like, you know, if you ever forget your toothbrush, everybody's like, oh, you could use neem for a toothbrush. Well, yeah, you can grow neem here, but it's from India, and there's a bunch of other things. So the native people had nice teeth here too. It wasn't unique to India or China or anything like that. So what did they use? And if you go, somebody said North Georgia, I forget. Like if you go up to Georgia or the Carolinas, then you have yellow root. That was something you would use for tooth infection. You go down by the creek and you pull that out and you wash the mud off, and you could even buy it at the little store. I bought like a pound of yellow root just by a roadside stand when I was driving through Georgia a few years ago. And so
good for you. Where was I?
I don't know. I thought you were there. So one of the things I like is just a small fresh twig. And I mentioned Alora because she forgot it. She's like, is that true what you said about, and she'd heard that story a 1,000 times about you forget your toothbrush, use this. And I was like, yeah. And so she went and she pulled up a dead one. I was like, no, it's got to be alive. And so I just pulled this off. It's alive. And she did what I told her. And she's like, oh my God, this is better than my toothbrush.
Yeah.
And so all we do is we get a small branch. And I literally make a brush out of it. And I can either chew it, and use it as a chew stick. You get a little spit, you get a little dry in the mouth, so you might need some water. But this will tighten up the gums for somebody who has, like, every time they brush their teeth, they're getting bloody gums and spit and all that out.
And that's why you get dry in your mouth.
This will tighten those up. It will work on all the various bacteria and other nifty stuff. And so you can make a tea, make a gargle out of it, or literally free toothbrush.
So Bob said something that was important. Plus, I want to take this time to address this. That he was talking about harvesting from this plant. So the first thing is he was making a conscious effort not to damage it in some way. And that if we're taught to take the bark, we certainly wouldn't chop the tree down or girdle it. We would just have a little limb on the side and try our best looking for something that might have already fallen. But the other thing is we didn't say anything about, and I'm not going to go massively into it, about actually asking the tree permission or the plant permission to harvest, knowing that it is in conjunction and living with us, and it has a thought process, and it might be saving us from harvesting the wrong item. If it doesn't readily just give the item up to you, it may be for a reason. We're used to, as humans, forcing our ways into situations, that if something doesn't naturally just come to you, or if there's not a piece out, it's important to see that like that may not be for you, and that's why. So just addressing the fact that this is an eating, breathing item that we're ripping a limb off of, and so that we may need to have a conversation about like, hey, I need you for medicine, and see what happens. You'd be surprised how many times we've had something come off on our hands. Definitely. Any questions about the oak in particular? Okay, hold on.
Could you like make a toothbrush with like just that specific oak, or just?
So the question is, could you make a toothbrush with that specific oak? And it kind of goes with what your question was going to be. So we are definitely Celtically trained, like on the island in Scotland, Celtically trained. And it doesn't matter what oak, that's the proper oak leaf that you would be thinking of that has the lobes that are on the outside. It doesn't matter what oak we have, they hold the same properties, mainly because they have the same constituents. The only difference would be the ground they're sucking out of, literally, will have different chemicals in it, different minerals in it, so it'll be slightly variant depending on where you are in the universe. But the things like the tannins and the antiseptic properties, those kind of things, nah, they're fine. You can use whichever one we have. And within our oaks that are here in Florida, same deal. Like sometimes we have ones that look proper. We have all kinds of different, like live oak and different things.
So
yes.
that goes across the board, like red oaks, pin oaks.
Yes, yes. The herb of commerce for Western herbalism, which is considered to be more Celtic, some Siberian, but more Celtic, is white oak. But it doesn't matter. Again, we've had elders here who wouldn't hesitate to come out to one of ours and bring it down. And the other thing is, in clinical practice, we see it. Like, so we see the same things happen. We see the same properties come across, whether we analyze it or not. So we've never had any oak let us down. And I've grown up only with this oak because I'm here from hundreds of years ago. And so when I get to see the real one, I get all a Twitter and excited. And I say the real one is the one that we recognize with the lobed leaf. And so no, it works fine. It's good. Babies, the elders are stronger than the babies, like what you'd expect. But other than that, you definitely. Any other questions?
Just really quick. My grandparents used to have me like chop wood. My grandfather would say, get some oak wood for the fireplace. Whatever type oak it was, it smelled really good. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
100%. So it's probably the lobed one, the one that's traditional, a white oak. Yeah, but the same deal. They smell beautiful. Anytime you smell anything burning, that's medicine. That oil that you're smelling, that scent, that's considered to be like almost like a carminative, like it opens up your breath. And also in indigenous practice, all of them, those are the things that we would wipe you down with to shift the energy. If there was an emergency, somebody passes out, they put smelling salts in front of them. Like anytime you smell something, that's the medicine you're smelling. That's where all the chemical is that's going to help you push forward. Usually antiseptic when you smell something too. Yes.
Are there any issues if you have Spanish moss growing on?
No, in fact, that's a misnomer. That if the Spanish moss, in fact, is a medicine in itself, and it's going to, it's not killing the tree. The tree is aging out, and so that's why that's there. It's not. I'm taking something from it. What was your question?
Do you consider this cool, or is it kind of neutral?
It would be neutral to cool. Definitely not warm. And drying, and it's not actually drying, it's just such a strong astringent, it feels drying. So in your case, it's going to be dispersal of the fluids, like reallocation of them. I'm thinking of the word that we would use, transformation of the fluids versus drying. Yeah, no problem. All right, let's go over. Bob's wandering about. He's wanting to find his Gotu Kola over here. So did you find what you wanted? You're going to make him get in the sun?
Back there,
There's patches over here, though.
No, this was the better patch.
Okay, hold on, you guys, and I'll show you. You were looking for what?
Not only we could compare it.
I'll go grab you some if you want. Yeah, Bob, there's patches all over, like all over here. Yeah, everyone's hot. Like, look at, there's a big patch right there. There's a patch here. Look at this guy. Look at that right there.
Stand right there.
Thank you for finding that, whoever that was. We're showing you that right there. And I'll grab that dollar weed if you want. I'll find it.
So we're going to talk about, and this is the Florida native one. This is Centella Erecta. And I'll get some more. If you find some on the ground, feel free to share.
So it's going to look like a thumbprint. It's right in front of me. It's right there. Yep, that's it right there.
Yeah, feel free to grab one off the ground if you got one. And this one, I hate to say it, is mistaken all over the place. You got one? Cool.
It's go-to cola. I'll come show you. Man, it's absolutely a pain in the butt to have to manage social media when you're trying to do an herb walk. I just want to play plants with you. Bob needs to take his phone back.
There's an alternate that's a lot more circular, right?
Yes, so there's going to be Asiatica, which is going to be the herb of commerce, and we can use Erectus, which is this one. So it's going to look like a brain versus like a thumbprint. Yeah, same properties altogether. Does anybody want to try it? It is bitter, but it is great for your brain.
Mildly.
Yeah. So there was just a question, is there a rounder one that looks similar? And yes, this one's going to look like a thumbprint. Asiatica, which is the herb of commerce, looks more like a brain. They're both brain oriented, and that's your signal that it looks like brain lobes on either side. Yes.
Does it have like a caffeine effect, this plant?
Does it have a what?
A caffeine.
No, it will clear away brain fog, so it might you might feel like that because you all of a sudden can think better, but it doesn't have an energetic effect necessarily.
There's a little sour and bitter. The bitter's the aftertaste.
Let's talk a little bit about it though. So the first thing is, the real important thing for you is that we fed it to you. And you got to be very, very careful where you harvest it and whether you eat it, because it likes wet feet. And we are the golf course capital of the world, which means that if there's a gully and something runs off into it, it's going to be polluted. So we know this area well. The ocean is right there. They don't spray here. They don't do anything here. And we didn't take you down into the dip where it's the lowest. You're on the outer bank. So you're in a safe area where it's all running off into the middle. So we know just from tasting it that it tastes like chemicals, and we'd never feed it to you. So be very careful if you go to eat this yourself. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you pulled off a little bit that had a little bit of root to it, it runs prostrate across the ground and has shoots that will start a new growth. In a pot or in a glass of water at home, after about a month, it'll be completely clear of any toxicity. And so that's the other thing to remember, that if you want to try to get it growing at your house, completely fine. We're going to use another plant with this as what we call a dui yao or a du yao. English, du yao, proper Chinese, it would be dui. And so let's talk about this for a minute. We're going to introduce the concept of doctrine of signatures. If you pull one of them up and look at them, they look just like a brain with hemispheres on either side. We're going to show you another plant that fits right up in the accent, and that would be the spinal cord, and we would use those together to help with your brain. So this is the plant that we'd be eating every morning and be giving to the elders and giving to the students to go off and go to school and think their very best. It's to help your brain function properly. It has that bitter and slightly drying effect, so it's important to know that it would be pulling off what we would say phlegm in the brain would be, fog. You know, fog looks phlegmy. So it's going to be pulling off brain fog. Bob's showing lookalikes, which we kind of agreed not to do so we didn't confuse them.
Right. All of these are edible.
We're going to show you all of these and talk about them, and we're going to confuse you right now.
None of them are dangerous.
So we would be using this to prime and feed the brain for any brain dysfunction of any kind. For just general, I'm getting old brain fog. I can't see right. I can't think right. My memory's going, but also for repair. So if we felt like we had a brain injury, a spinal cord injury, if we had early onset of any of the things we know that we're afraid of, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, any of that, start eating gotu kola. In the countries that this has been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years, it's food. Like you would throw it into a salad or in a pot, no problem. But it's very important with what Bob's about to say that you get a clear identification of it. So he's going to show us dollarweed, which has what we call an umbilicus presentation of stem, like an umbilical cord. It comes right from the middle, where this always is going to come right from.
I just dropped the
dollar weed.
no, the other one.
This is Go To Cola.
I'm losing my mind.
You got it?
Go To Cola?
It is on. It should. No. Do you know what? We couldn't find it. We found it this morning. We thought it was all gone, and so it's not on the list. So, Go To Cola. So, yes, you just ate Go To Cola. So everybody, not to confuse you, that's correct, and you can plant that. So Go To Cola is the one that you have in your hand that looks like a brain. Yes.
And there's the one
With the one with the stem in the middle, like an umbilical cord, that is dollar weed. It's a chondritin. It is on your list, and it's not going to kill you, but it tastes worse, and it's only for your digestion. So we want the brain medicine. So the piece that comes down in the middle, the stem, is supposed to resemble your spinal cord, and then the brain piece is supposed to be to help prime your brain. And so we use this for any brain health, any thinking health of any kind, and it's food. Whereas the dollar weed is going to be very specific to your gut, not food, and actually has a toxicity. If you juiced it, or if you put it in if you found some way to eat more than you should, because it's not yummy, you really shouldn't want to eat it. It's gross. If you found some way to eat more than you should, you might cause a toxicity. So you really have to kind of know what you're harvesting. So no umbilicus presentation for food, only medicine. Only like a spinal cord coming out of your brain for the stem. That's how to remember it. There is one that was brought up that is Asiatica, that's fatter. We have both of them here. This is Erectus, like a thumbprint, and it's just 1-for-1 usable across the board. So you want to do that one?
Yeah. So, and we'll look at this one in more detail later, but this one is, name just ran out of my brain.
Ponyfoot?
Ponyfoot, thank you.
That one's carolensis, chondritin carolensis, I think is what it is.
Similar.
It's on your sheet.
That it's got that cut where the stem, but this is like as big as it gets. And it's a round edge versus the scalloped edge, and significantly smaller. So again, this one won't hurt you. It just has a different function.
More digestion, not food. Slight toxicity if you were to juice it.
And so scalloped edge on the Go To Cola.
And umbilicus.
On the Ponyfoot.
and the dollar weed is bigger.
And the dollar weed, the stem attaches at the center of the leaf.
Like an umbilical cord. So are you guys able to look on the ground and like be like, hey, it's that right there? Because it hid from us all morning and we didn't find it. And when we did it, we were like, bam, done. There it is.
Can't find anything but Go To Cola.
Yeah, so Go To Cola. When we get to a dollar weed patch, I'll show you. FYI, if you have dollar weed in your yard, don't spray it with Roundup. Just stop watering.
Yeah.
This Ponyfoot?
That's Ponyfoot.
Okay.
That's Go To Cola. Yeah, solid. Now the Ponyfoot we'll talk about in a little while. And Ponyfoot, we want to turn it sideways and it looks like a kidney, and we'd be using it for kidney health. And again, not as much food, more than medicine.
What is this guy's?
Kidneys, but we'll talk about it when we're over there where there's a better patch. All right, let's start to move, Bob, to the next one. You're doing it. You had a trail planned out. Yeah. So we're gonna go straight over. There you go. Good job. Those are geranium, Florida geranium. We'll talk to you about those too. They're medicine. They're on the list too. Another one we found that we couldn't find that we're like, oh yep, we got to talk about it.
Are you doing everything on the list, or this is just your list and you're picking through
We'll probably do everything on the list plus more. Okay, so here, Bob, like this is the line. So here.
Sometimes it's overwhelming.
Here, Bob. Bob.
Pesticides around these trees. So
See, there's one right there. It's all in here. See, it's everywhere. Yeah. Okay.
So they use less, and it's more spot treatments.
No, we're looking for something else. Yeah. So see this whole, it's everywhere. So that's the big one. There's a big one right there. And it goes all the way. I'll pull you that way and get more if you want me to dig some. If you want to hold this, I'll dig some up. If you want to lean it on your coffee cup, it's up to you. Okay.
So that's the Ponyfoot. Yes, and dollar weed. Good job. Whoops. Helps if I know what I'm looking at.
We have Ponyfoot. Which one is more?
I would say the Go To Cola is more food. In Ayurvedic medicine, and I forget actually gotu kola is the Ayurvedic name for it. They'll throw 100 grams of it in a pot of soup. Yeah, and I say that the dollarweed, pennywort, the one that's sitting here, the Chinese make a canned drink. If you go to an Asian market, it's disgusting.
Hey, you know what? Bob just brought up something that was real important. Let me say this. So we're going to show you this other plant, a third one, okay? So I'm going to say its name. It's not now. We're going to show it to you in a minute, but he brought something up. Cordifolia, dollarweed, and this other plant called bacopa. They're all called Brahmi. They're all called bacopa. They're all called goticola, and they're all called dollarweed. They won't hesitate. Like you think you're getting goticola and you're not. You're getting a flippin' soda of dollarweed. It's disgusting. So you really have to know, like when I say that it's Asiatica, Centella Asiatica, that's what you're looking for. Because that's interchangeable. And that's interchangeable on people who sell medica, who sell herbs to you. They'll sell you say, hey, this is Brahmi here, and it's not. Bacopa moninari is not dollarweed. And so that's the thing. Oh, good job, buddy. That's what I was going to go do. And so he brought that up. That's good. Like right now in the Chinese market, you can go buy something that's dollarweed juice that they'll say is goticola. So you got to be very careful with that. The one that we're looking at now is Florida wood betony or rattlesnake root. So on your paper it says rattlesnake root, and it's too early to have the root system, but we are going to.
Oh, you're lucky.
We intentionally planted it.
Oh, okay. Good job.
Yeah, we're going to look at the root system.
So with this one, there is a root that looks like a rattlesnake's rattle, but it'll be white and the texture of a radish. Throw it in a pickle jar, eat it fresh, super nutritious. I personally would argue that it's like a very mild ginseng, and it's very nourishing. And we can't see it great. If there's a better thread, that's the
I know.
other one.
But
But it'll have a white root on it, and at the end of this, in the springtime, summer, we'll have the rattlesnake rattle, and I've gotten them as long as my hand, from my middle finger up onto my forearm. And so they'll get huge, and all you do is follow this little white root.
And so I'm leaving them out gently so you can see them. If they're really fat in this patch, they're actually the dollarweed. So these are the ones I'm talking about.
This plant is in the mint family, the Laminaceae family, and it's interesting. It's one of the few mints that doesn't have a smell to it. So most mint, you rub it, and you're like, oh, that smells lovely. This one, no smell. And when you look at the mint family or Laminaceae family, there's a couple of key characteristics. The leaves are oriented on the stem opposite of each other. So we got leaf, leaf, even at the same level. We'll have scalloped edges on the leaf, and you can see very distinct scalloping along the edge. And you can't tell on this one, but it has a square stem. So not all square stems are Laminaceaes, but many are, or most are. So we use this a couple of different ways. We actually hear about wood betony, which is a different kind of Stachys. I think it's officinalis, Stachys officinalis, and this one is Stachys floridana, yeah. And with this one, we use it at what's called a nervine. It helps to nourish and soothe frazzled nerves. We'd use it in a similar way that we might use something like oat tops, lemon balm, kind of in that realm of just making everything okay without sedating you. So it's great. Yay, I'm stressed out. Well, a 2x4 knocking you unconscious is not what everybody needs. You still got to go to work that day. So this one, we can use the tops and all parts to act as that nourishing, I would argue there's a cool term for some of you, tropho-restorative, nourishing that nervous system and settling it down.
So definitely considered to be a nervine, an adaptogen, and a neurotropic.
Rattlesnake root?
Yeah, rattlesnake root
So
on your
use
sheet.
the leaves too.
Yes.
Everything, all parts are used. And so it just is green. It's a really nice tea. It's the kind of thing we would have it all of the time.
And this is unique to Florida. I don't know how far north it goes, but I've not seen this up in Georgia and the Carolinas.
And when we had our one Cherokee elder there who's definitely versed in the wood betony,
pass that around.
He was asking me about, like, how do I consider this? Do I consider it to be superior, the same, neutral to the herb of commerce? And agreed that we think it's superior. That it does really go a long way to repairing your nervous system.
So there's an old, I think 16th century writing about the European betony, the Stachys officinalis, and it said, "Sell your coat and buy betony." That it was more important than a winter coat in Europe. And so this is so overlooked. Cool that you guys are growing it. I drove by it the other day. I actually saw all the bananas and stuff. Obviously, I didn't stop in. Where do we want to go from here,
Wherever
love?
you want to. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the betony. Yeah, pass that one around.
You said it's like a mint, but it doesn't smell like
No, no
No,
mint.
it just
What
doesn't.
about the taste?
No,
It just tastes
very
green.
mild.
You can throw it into anything. You can
Uh-oh.
eat it. You could throw it into greens. You could throw it into a pot. You
So
could throw
no
it into your
minty
tea.
taste, no minty smell.
No.
No, so you have to really do it by both the root and the
But
leaf
super
structure.
awesome for your nervous system at all parts, even reparative for like
And-
synapses.
Yeah, this is a
Is that rattlesnake?
No, that's that's actually
chopped down Biden's. So really look at your leaf edge. I forget what that is.
We have it growing in our yard. It's pretty robust.
Yeah, I just noticed it recently. Let's go hit the supplemental and stuff.
So you guys, quick, so I can clarify, because I've had two of these questions. Rattlesnake root and Florida wood betony are the same thing, and that's their common name.
Oops.
You see it that way. It is Stachys floridana. and
There's
it's on the page.
some
That's the Latin name for it. It's the same
big
thing.
patches.
So we want to give you the common names because that's how you're going to see people speaking about it. They'll find recipes and things for it that way.
There's a nice patch of it over here.
Wood betony, Florida wood betony, rattlesnake root. It's all Florida wood betony. And we're walking over. Bob, where are you going?
I was going to go to the saw palmetto and the beauty berry.
I'm going to get my drink.
Yes, please.
I'll be right back.
Whoops, wrong patch. Ha! Forgot where I was going. I'm not going to talk about it, but these are all mango trees. Da-da-da. Thanks for playing along, all. It's hard to manipulate the phone, find the plant, and talk about it all at the same time. It's a beauty berry. You can see where the seeds used to be. And then we're also going to talk about the saw palmetto. We're going to look at that orientation right there. Ah. So the hilarious thing is sometimes we could literally sit in a circle and talk about 20 plants, but it's boring then. So if we do that for 2 hours, we kind of walk around. And there are a few unique things here. So one of the things that gets really challenging, and the more you do this, the more important it becomes. There's some easy ways to identify certain plants. We're going to look at some peppergrass here in a minute. This is beautyberry, and everybody's used to finding beautyberry when the purple berries are on it. There's kind of this whitish purple berry. You can see where it used to be, and it'll clump around the stem, and that's really important. If it's almost black purple berries coming off the end, it's toxic, don't eat it. So we want the purple. It's a kind of a lighter purple, small berries that clump around the stem. You can see this was where they were, was right here, and then the leaves are up this part. There is a very different kind of leaf. There's a scent to the leaf, and it's very dry and crumbly. So the beautyberry has a couple of functions. One is we can use it as insect repellent. It's been tested that it's more as effective as DEET, you know, that neurotoxin that they put in off and the other stuff that literally I am sick for days if I spray any kind of DEET containing herbs on me. Thank you, U.S. military. So literally we can take this and just rub it on. The trick with this is you have to reapply often because it doesn't have fancy chemicals on there that make it stick to your skin. So you might have to put this on every 30 minutes. A lot of times, like right now, the bugs aren't too bad. It's the middle of the day, but maybe you're city meat and they like you better. I'll mash it up and I'll put it inside my hat. And it'll keep, because I don't care what they do to my feet. I don't pay any attention to that. But I hate it when they're buzzing around my head, so I'll stick this in my hat band. I'll do that with cedar as well. It also, all parts, but especially the roots, can be used for cough. And so we can use this for a wet cough. And our favorite one, I will give Renee credit for this.
Thank
What
you.
up, Stuart?
Hey. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm running away.
Toilet paper. Usually these leaves are a little bit bigger.
Come here.
And so literally, there's nothing worse than having to go into the woods
Nice to see you.
anywhere in Florida and needing to drop drawers. So if you're dropping, those mosquitoes are biting. This is your friend.
So yeah, that's welcome to Renee World. That's how I grew up. That's redneck toilet paper. So one thing that we don't talk about, and it's in all the ethnobotany books, but I know it from a first-hand experience, that just like we spoke about with the oak and the inner bark and that kind of thing, we would use it, the inner bark, all parts and the leaves, for a very mild cough suppressant. It's not going to be the killie item that's going to take care of that illness. It's going to be the helper item that's with whatever your killie item is.
Oh, look,
so
some on the branch.
Cough syrup, all of it. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So cough syrup. So it's something that all parts would be used that way as an antitussive. Are you telling me I need this because I was coughing earlier?
Yeah, right.
And so antitussive is what we're looking at with that. And you could just use all parts. So if you were going to make a jam out of the berries, which they're okay, they don't have a lot of sugar in them. They are edible, just like any berry edible.
I think it's nice to decorate like just a couple of the berries in a salad or on a plate just because it's pretty. It's not because it tastes great.
And we can pass that if anybody wants to rub and smell it. It does smell like a bug spray.
I will say there's another less commonly known use
Hold on,
for it.
hold on.
Is it a release exterior?
Slightly.
So this is in your Medica.
Zizou.
Yeah, towards the end of the book.
Rub it on yourself and you'll
what
see it.
category it's
It's slight. It's think about in the front of your book where you have superior, moderate, and inferior. It would be like a middle of the road. It's not this, it's not that, it's in between. So it does slightly. When you rub it on it, it feels a little bit like when you spray bug spray on, you get that cooling effect. So just slightly releasing the exterior.
Sorry, and I should have said it. Though Florida Bethany would be a regulate cheer.
Okay.
Yeah, almost a chai-hoo. Yeah. So one thing we don't talk about too often, if you've ever seen any of those documentaries of the native people and they're mashing some wood and the fish float up and they gather them up and they didn't poison them, it literally paralyzes their gills. This.
It's an antitussive.
So
it helps you with coughing.
Will paralyze their ability to breathe. So yes, they will die in time, but they'll dam up a part of the water. This works, I don't know if it'll work in salt water. I know it works in fresh water. They'll dam up a part where there's some fish, break up a bunch of these branches, just mash them against the rocks. There's a number of herbs actually in Florida.
And it's not poison. It's literally just because it makes
so you can still eat the fish.
They just can't get away quickly because they're not breathing oxygen well. Bob, I want to say that
Jamaican dogwood is the other one.
Matt, your Matt from class says that he puts it around his collar so my sweat helps to release it.
Oh, nice.
And it helps to release the constituents like all over him, like when he's having bug issues.
Nice. So, and let's talk about this guy. So we have a number of palmettos or palms.
I'm going to show the top there,
Yeah.
the flat part right there. And then we have the sawtooth.
So this is actually saw palmetto that somebody can pay a lot of money to get a supplement of. I say primarily, guys, because its primary role is for enlarged prostate. And the berries are the part used, and it's past season, but the berries would be attached to this. We would wait till they just go from green or starting to turn a yellow-black. And they taste like fermented soap. They're disgusting.
Rotten soap. They taste like rotten soap.
And if you ever want to know, like, oh, I just bought this really good product. They said it was the best product in the world. If you want to know, open it up and taste what's in your capsule or in your pill.
And if it doesn't taste like rotten ass,
It should be disgusting. You should be
didn't
like,
get the right medicine.
Like I am very tolerant of nasty tasting stuff.
Why are we eating this again?
Oh, it's so good. It's such a strong medicine.
It's medicine primarily, although we can eat, we talk about heart of palm, and this is not the primary plant used for heart of palm, but you can eat the center of this.
Down at the bottom, those right down there. One of the things I do want to tell you, because I'm watching Bob do this with his bare feet and just rushing in with no kind of grace to it at all, is that it's the home for baby rattlesnakes and coral snakes, especially in the wintertime when they're hibernating. So don't rush in the way that he just did. Like, make sure you're making a lot of movement. They hear from vibration. So if you're stomping as you get up, they start to move away. They don't want to have anything to do with you either. So don't rush into them the way that he's Bob. If it doesn't come, it's not supposed to. Okay. All right, so what he's trying to do is pull out the fringes where they're first growing up, and you can chew on the bottom of them, kind of like artichoke heart feeling. And so that's one of the things. And then we use, for swamp cabbage, the sable palm. You can also use this one, but you have to know how to get the edges off and get everything and get it boiled down properly. So that's a quick way of being able to snack on it the way that he's describing.
So it's called saw palmetto because of the edge here. This is toothed, and this will slaughter your hand.
Yeah.
Like, you need
Bloody
to go to
nub.
the hospital and get stitches because it rips it open so bad.
For sure.
And so the saw palmetto has the blunted tip and teeth on the stem.
I'm trying to look for a piece to pull up for you guys to eat, but I don't see it.
And we eat the fruit. And
at
I'm
the-
going to talk a little bit more because this one, yes,
Yeah.
you can eat the center.
Yeah. So it's at
I
the
prefer
bottom.
Some of the cabbage palms, they're easier to
Yeah,
get
I'll
out.
show it to you if I see it. Yeah, actually, the one that.
So I say it's
where that
primarily
got
for
a
guys
stalk
for
on
prostate, for enlarged prostate.
That would have been it.
Guys' prostate enlarges because they're not processing the dihydrotestosterone, the DHT, very well, and that causes both certain types of baldness as well as the enlarged prostate. Women sometimes have this issue as well. And so in particular, women who have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, where they have an elevated testosterone and they don't process out the used up testosterone as well. And so they oftentimes end up with elevated blood sugar, thinning hair, baldness literally, at a fairly young age. They'll end up overweight and sometimes extra facial hair or body hair that isn't normal. And that's the testosterone that's starting to increase. And something like saw palmetto, there's lots of other herbs that can be helpful too. The saw palmetto is very helpful for them to help processing that out because they're not as good as men at prostate screening.
It's very important that we understand that we have the exact same bodies, just in different levels. So if something affects your endocrine system, it's not male or female. Like, I don't like it that they say that. Like, we all have the same chemicals in different ratios, so we all have the same kind of problems. So just because it's saying prostate issues, really what it should be saying is regulation of endocrine system. So regulation of our bodily symptoms. And so thinking about our signaling being off. And so everybody can use it appropriately for sure.
Do you have a better wax myrtle?
No, that's the best one we're going to get.
Let's go hit wax myrtle. Thatch actually, so they're good for shelter building.
Yeah, and before they
But I'll also use it to chase the bugs away when I'm walking.
before
Polycystic.
yes.
So is that like a ovarian cyst in
Yes,
females?
yes. It's a combining of symptoms, but yes. Oh, we have some good berries.
I was going to say, I don't know whether you
Nice.
saw these, but
Oh, I'll find some and pass if you want. Do you want to hold the camera? I don't want to walk away from you speaking.
So
Here, you guys, I'm going to pass you some.
this is wax myrtle, and it is a myrtle. There's a bunch of different myrtles. They're all used very similarly. This one is uniquely pleasant smelling. And
This is so important that you're getting those berries on there. So here.
And so this is actually like, I didn't think it was in season, but these are perfect for harvesting the berries off of here. And you could literally make a candle out of it if you have way too much time on your hands.
So
So-
you harvest for 3 days, you're going to get maybe a tea candle.
Yeah.
So don't get excited.
So
about it.
you can actually strip these berries off, drop them in hot water, and the wax will start to float up to the surface. You gather it up and it becomes a scented wax.
So real quick, as we're passing these, if you guys take a single one and crunch on it or rub it in your hands, like rub it in your hands and
Or a
smell
leaf,
your hands.
yeah. And
Or a
so and you can see,
Yeah, you
I can literally scrape a little bit of wax off of there, and that's a natural occurring plant wax there. What I prefer doing, because I don't have that kind of time, is really just either use the whole leaves, or you can grind up the leaves fresh or dried and add in those regular candle wax that you buy.
Guys, do this
And-
thing. It's called garbling,
and-
and then smell your hands.
And as it burns down, there's enough of the scent here that will be helpful. It's a pleasant smell. It can also be used as a spice, not as a food, but as a spice. So there's a big difference. You don't want to eat a plate of black pepper. Bad things will happen at the other end. But a little bit of black pepper on a steak is lovely. So a little bit of this leaf used like a bay leaf, like in a pot of soup or something like that, gives a very different and lovely smell to it. But this is both spiritual medicine and also physical medicine, specific for pregnancy.
Well, for stuck items, let's
So-
do that,
yeah.
because I would use it spiritually for...
Yeah, well, we can talk about spiritually in a second. So it's specific for a woman who's in labor where they're not getting strong contractions, and so it's a delayed labor that ideally the root, but then you got to kill the plant. So I tend not to. I'll actually use the aerial parts. I'll use the plant itself, the branches. We always like telling this one story. There's a friend of ours who married a guy from Ecuador who was Quechua, and they had literally just come here, and they were here maybe a month when she went into labor. And I think they'd been a couple of hours, and they were doing a home birth. They couldn't get the labor going, so they called me and said, "Is there any way you can come over?" So I canceled my patients. I went over, and knowing that he was an indigenous person from Ecuador, I knew enough of the normal ceremonies that they would do, because during childbirth, besides being exhausted, it's a time when a woman is wide open. And we say that bad energy, bad air can invade during that time. And so there's a lot of sicknesses that spiritual sicknesses that follow afterwards. So before I ran over there, I put together a carry kit of all my acupuncture stuff. And I was like, I know I need to get something. So I actually came here to the park on the way to their house and clipped a bunch of these branches. And when I got there, the husband was there, and I don't speak Quechua, needless to say.
he didn't speak English.
And he didn't speak English. And so I just showed him the plant, and I started to place it around her for protection, and the biggest grin got on his face.
His mom's a medicine person in their village, and she's in several villages. She's the one to go to. So he'd spent his lifetime gathering for her.
And so we ended up making a strong tea out of this and a strong infusion as well. But so that idea of using it for spiritual medicine, this can be used for smudge in the same way we were talking about cedar, or you might use sage. It can be used as a broom to literally sweep stuff away, sweep out the negative energy, or to act as protection when somebody's weak.
Okay, so real quick, because I want you to know medicinally what we're looking at. So anywhere in the world, especially the East Coast, that we have any myrtle, swamp myrtles, wax myrtles, any myrtle that's in this family that smells like that bay leaf smell that some of you guys smelled, they're used for things that are stuck. So physical things that are stuck are like bruises. When we get stuck coagulated blood, that's where we get pain from. When we're stuck in our heart, we literally have pain from that. It's used to move away emotional, spiritual, and physical stuff.
All your Regulate Chi stuff, where did she go? Oh,
Right
nope,
here.
that's not her.
It's right
Oh.
here. We also,
there you are.
We
Regulate
also
Chi.
have antiseptic, antiviral, antibiotic properties for all of it. You could spray it right on your countertop and wipe it down. You could use this one as the toothbrush item the same way, or as a gargle the same way, to try to help with something that was coming on, or if you were having tooth issues, for sure. So anytime you have anything that's a sick item, the other thing that holds this characteristic, anytime you smell that bay smell, is that it's a bronchial dilator. So it's going to help you breathe. It's literally like putting smelling salts under your nose. It's going to open everything up. That's why I'm like, no, rub it. See, one single seed in your molar would poof everything. Like, it's like really intense.
Let's
for sure.
go hit Magnolia.
Any questions about
Oh
that?
yeah, questions.
Crepe myrtle is part of that family.
No. That's a common name that's not going to fit into there. We don't use those seeds. In fact, there's some toxicity with that goes with that.
Now the berries are always the same?
They're similar. Sometimes they're really large, like the swamp ones. It depends on the light that they get. The wax ones are always going to be tiny, and they're always going to have that waxy sheen that's on them. And you'll know from the smell. If it smells like a bay leaf, this is called bayberry. If it smells like a bay leaf, then you know that you got the right one and it's an antiseptic property. Okay, Bob's going to walk over to the magnolia, one of our trees.
I see, and I suck at mushrooms. They require actual work.
Chelsea that you were talking about? That was in
Yeah.
labor?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know you guys knew that.
For the first kid. Try not to say names. Man, there's a lot of people out here. Holy crap.
Is this the largest you've had?
No.
You got a huge following.
Yeah. No, that it's in the past we've done like 2 in a day, and we're just like, we kind of want to have some downtime. So our afternoon ones, we sometimes get 50 plus people, and that got to be a little much.
To do double, to do the afternoon.
Well, and we remember that one time we did it over at Boyd Hill. We had like over 50 people. It was horrifying. And with COVID, we're like, So this.
What do you mean? We're free and clear. The whole thing's open.
That's
no
right.
restrictions.
So this little beauty is, I believe it's a southern magnolia. Chinese, this is the bark we actually look at as hopo. And the flower buds, we got some on the ground. They're a little old, would be Xinyi Hua for sinus congestion. So, yeah. So this is obviously not the Chinese varietal one. The Chinese one's tiny. It almost looks like, for any of you up north, the pussy willow. But this has the same aromatic properties that the Chinese one does, and would have the same sinusy thing. It's funny, the Chinese use the bark. They'll actually strip the bark off. They'll pull big layers of it out, and they'll use that flower. You don't see anybody talking about the leaf. Sorry, I got ants on me. So the leaves, regulate chi, are specific for stress, help with the lungs. And we find that one of my favorite uses for this is making either an alcohol extraction or an infusion for stop smoking. Because of its aromatic properties, it helps to break up some of that phlegm for smokers, but it also helps with the stress of withdrawal. So it's not something we think about as food, it's straight medicine, but this is a Florida native. We find them all over the place. All of the species can be used, and all parts of this plant can be used. And so all of it has a stress component. All of them are aromatic and have some drying properties to it. And then the furthest out part of the plant is for the furthest out part of the body, your nose.
Okay, so hold on. So I want you guys to see this, because we talk about, like I want you to see the patterns in nature and how there's no differences with all of us, and continentally and tribally we would have used these all the same way. So what Bob just said, so I learned, like, because he just basically said Chinese and Ayurvedic stuff. I learned this and have known this my whole life, and I told you, like, one side of the family's been here since the 1600s.
And you can give this a rub and smell.
And I learned it with this thing called Doctrine of Signature that I said earlier, like the brain, it looks like the brain is good for the brain type of thing. And what he said was important. So as you move up the tree, like if you thought of your body like a tree, if I had stuck phlegm, so you think of not being able to breathe, but stuck phlegm can be kidney stones. Stuck phlegm can almost be stuck blood. It can be anything that's milky, stodgy in our body, keeping us still. As you move up, the bark would be used for stuck in here, stuck digestion. The limbs would be used, the inner bark, for as we get into the branches. As we go up and it's sinus related, we'd be using the pods and everything that goes with that. And then the seed of the tree would be used for stuck phlegm in the ovaries, stuck phlegm in the prostate. So things that are the seeds of who we are. And so that's the way I was taught that. And so when we come out here and talk about the herb of commerce for Chinese, for everything that he didn't use, like my people put it in the other part. It's super interesting to see that. So we would have boiled it down the same way. It's an antitussive. That hairiness on the back of there is the Doctrine of Signature, because it's getting you to clear the phlegm out. It's causing that cough to come up. And for the smoker's thing, same exact thing. We need to get that tar out of your lungs. And so it seems counterintuitive, but it's not. It's moving that phlegm out for sure. And so it's an interesting thing to see how they would combine. It doesn't matter who it is, anywhere there's a magnolia, that's what they would say.
And there's a few things that are specific to this. And Renee said it earlier when we were over, I think, by the oak, and she mentioned the word girdling. And not everybody knows that term. Girdling means if we took off a strip of bark all the way around the tree, it would die. Like the city actually kills trees. Horrible for the tree, but it's easy for them. Yeah, it's literally strangling them. So if you were to harvest this, ideally you'd take a branch, or you would literally cut strips this way.
So laterally across the horizon, it will kill it. Horizontally, it will still be able to move its food and its air around.
So the other thing is the age of the tree is important in this case. So
for sure.
We generally don't harvest a magnolia bark unless it's at least 10 years old. And there's an interesting thing. So this little sucker right here that I pulled the leaves off of, if I were to cut this off and plant it, this is considered 10 years old.
I have a question for you to clarify for Chinese and Ayurvedic. You're not supposed to use the bark of a tree that's not an elder. Like we have obviously the same kind of things. Would it be okay to use it for a light tussive reaction to use the leaf that's on a younger plant?
Yeah, the leaf and the flowers are
So the thing that
correct.
reconstitutes constantly and is getting new stuff, fine. But we need, for a harder problem, we need a harder part. So we need something that's like an elder that's helping us with being able to breathe.
So it's still too small to harvest. Like you could just harvest this and use it. But if I were to cut this off and plant it, the tree that grew started at 10 years old. I don't know how old this one is, but it would be starting at whatever the age of this tree is. And that's a unique kind of idea. There's the age when we plant a seed is how long it takes for that thing to grow. But when we take a branch, it's at whatever age that tree is it's considered.
Magnolias super slow growing trees compared to other trees?
They are
Ish.
I was going to say
Our southern one kind of bounds.
moderate.
like if you think about like Appalachia Hill that would be at the bottom, like those grow slower. Our southern one kind of.
Yeah, like cedar is slow as it takes forever. This
Are there
one's like,
any
it's
questions
average.
about this? Yeah.
Those ones on the ground considered the pod, right? Not
Yeah, absolutely. And
The seeds are in this.
So what happens is
Well,
this.
not in that one, but
Right. So what happens is
there's a
this
red thing
actually
in there.
comes out like this, and you can see the opening where they popped out, and it will be all furry, and a seed will be about that big. It'll be chunky and furry, so those are all open and popped out.
What were the little dots on the back of the leaf?
Yeah, some critter on there. This is considered a sucker, and it's literally sucking some of the energy out of the tree, and this in itself is not strong, so it's unhealthy.
Can I ask you to clarify something else too? I would have been taught to use this part too. Do you do that? Do you use that when
Chinese,
it's
no.
coming up?
Not in Chinese.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
It's very aromatic, yeah. And so we can also sometimes look at
That's funny.
the
We need to write a book.
the newer growth, like she was looking at this actively growing stem here,
Like basically a node.
tends to be more aromatic and more stimulating.
Okay, so this is what we would have done. We would have broken that off and rubbed it on the bottom of the feet of a child who couldn't breathe, that we needed to put a humidifier in, because we used to not have humidifiers. So we would have used it like Vicks Vapor Rub. So I would have been sent to run out and get it to really get into somebody's lungs or the bottom of their feet
And
if they
this
were
will
sleeping.
almost be where we don't usually think of magnolia having a lot of sap. All trees have some
would
sort
be
of sap.
sticky.
This actually has a sap.
It's winter time, you guys, and it does weird things in the winter, so we don't get the same smells. Each land, the day of the time of the day, the time of the month, and the time of the year controls what's
That's
up and
good
what's
shit.
down. Oh yeah, you just huffed it? Is
No,
good?
I just ate some.
Oh, solid. Do as I say, not as I do.
Totally.
Don't do this. We
I now
a
have
herbal
cotton
mistakes
mouth.
class you guys can come to. Right there.
All the ways I've poisoned myself.
Totally.
But the stripping of the bark, you said who strips a lot of bark off this?
The Chinese do
And you
that.
work with it now?
They actually, that's some of their best medicine for, we call it chi stagnation,
Yeah.
especially when it's in the throat
So look at-
or when things are going the wrong direction. So it helps
I
things go
would do
down.
this.
Yeah, plum
I
head,
would
yeah.
use the bark traditionally, phlegm in here, bronchial swelling, can't breathe, having to pull that out and get the phlegm to move.
There you
So
go,
it's the
laddie.
same thing if you're the plant, that's the stock that you'd be using. So it's very interesting. Yeah, well,
Yeah, but it's
yeah, it's the same thing, almost like the plum pit.
you really want to get the fresh and dry it.
Have something there, you're constantly thinking about you're being suffocated, not
But literally, don't just break it off, but like cutting that off would actually help the plant.
100%.
Yeah,
But
'cause
I'm
that's
telling
sucking
you,
the
you get
energy out of it.
nubs, what's considered to be the node, it's super intense medicine, and it has a low impact on the plant.
I did. So when you're talking about using different parts of the plant, am I assuming that there must be green tea, or should we just be eating?
So it depends on when we say something's food, it's food and each one's specific. So that rattlesnake root you're looking at, if you ate the vine that was, not the vine, the root that was coming off of it and the rootlets, and then finally the rattlesnake
the
part
part
that
I was
wasn't
talking about.
present, that looks like a spinal column, that is literally going to our
That's the
spinal
actively
fluid or
growing
spinal cord and down. If we ate the
If
aerial
you
part,
scratch
it's
the bark
literally
and
going and
get it down
driving
to
up
the
into your head.
fresh
Like, it
green
does that. We can
part,
see it
like,
happen. Even
get
I
down
have
into
had
the
a lot
inner
of,
bark.
I've had concussions
Stick your
and
nose
several
up on
breaks
there.
and spinal cord injuries. You can see it on my plates on the days that I'm eating it. My spine looks better for sure. And so in that case, we would try to extract the heavy medicine as medicine. That little nub I'm talking about, that's not food, that's definitely medicine. When we're talking about something where I'm like, oh, this is just green, just eat it, tea is fine, absolutely. But I'll tell you, and the other thing is, I said hard part for a hard problem, that also means you need a hard process to get the medicine out of it.
Boil the crap out
So
of it.
we would have to, and that's the first class ever we teach is that, because everybody needs to know what to do with their food and their medicine.
Do you want to do
if it's an aerial part that's soft and flopping around, you pretty much can just eat it, like a flower, unless you're trying to get the resins out. If it's a hard part, you have to do something to get it out, to make it more bioaccessible to your body.
Do you want to do CETA over here in the unmowed
Yeah,
part
sure.
or somewhere else?
Absolutely. Do you know if have you seen one blooming? There's one right here. There's a bloom right there.
Oh yeah, there is
in
bloom
the
there.
shade.
Perfect.
And I'm going to grab, there's 3 kinds in here.
Oh,
and
sweet.
You're standing in front of Cordifolia and Acuta. And so, yeah, so I'm going to grab the
So
other one
go
if you
go
want.
find the ones you want, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So we're talking about this plant right here, and so any of you who are meth dealers, close your ears, or I should say manufacturers. Dealers, you can listen. Yeah. So I hate to say it, this plant is a felony. I personally don't think any plant should be illegal. But this to take across state lines is considered a felony. Don't take it across state lines. This is CETA.
This is Cordifolia.
Cordifolia?
This is Cordifolia.
So yeah, this one is truly.
This is Acuta.
Oh, okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so here's Acuta. This is Cordifolia. This is
Yeah.
Acuta.
So the Cordifolia is the one listed on the FDA's website as a felony. And the reason it is a felony is that it contains ephedrine in the root. And the ephedrine is a bronchial dilator, opens up the lungs. And when Ma Huang, a really good Chinese herb, was misappropriated by the weight loss and stimulant industry, and a few idiots killed themselves with it, literally, by like doing massive amounts of it, not drinking water, and putting on 4 layers of clothes, and then going to spring training. A baseball player died that way here in Florida. This CETA,
SIDA, and it's under wireweed on your paper.
yeah, and so the roots are the part that contain the most ephedrine, and can be used. Literally, Renee's kid has asthma, has since he was a kid. He still has this extracted in alcohol. This is his inhaler. He starts gasping for breath. He hits a couple of sprays off of his CETA tincture, and he's good within minutes. This plant is in the mallow family, Malvaceae. You all know a mallow. It's called okra. And okra has a really unique property to it. It's slime-malicious,
Hey, I'm
right?
going to pass stuff. You guys, this for me, as a heritage, this is food. So I'm going to pass a leaf to you, and you can eat it, and it's going to just kind of get this like spit in your mouth, and you're going to be like, oh, I can see. That would totally lube something up. No.
So the sliminess of this, it's not as slimy as okra, but all of your mallows have some level of sliminess. This plant is highly used in Ayurvedic medicine. It has this really unique distinction. Any of you who've ever been to a yoga class, you've heard like, hit a kapha and you're like, whatever, I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm whatever they said I was. So those are different body types and hold specific characteristics. This plant is so unique that it's considered to be tridoshic, which means it's good for all the different body types. And we can use different parts for different body parts. So if we need that really strong opening up of the lungs, we use the roots. If we need just general nourishment and moistening, we can use the leaves or the flowers. There's very little to no ephedrine in the leaves, so you're not going to hurt yourself with that. For any of you who are into the Ayurvedic, this is called Bala, B-A-L-A, and you'll find, this is Bala, and it will be in a crap ton of Ayurvedic formulas. Like, you will literally see it all over the place. And yes, in some ways, it's better than Mahwang.
Can I say words of this? Yeah, and we've
because
done...
Mahwang will dry you out and only can be used
will
for people with a strong constitution. This one, because there's a nourishing aspect and a moistening aspect, and so, and easier to find because it's in your backyard.
But we'll do the orientation too. So I want to speak about this particular plant. The first thing is, Bob said that it's a felony. I have doctors every year calling me saying, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this?
And of course we never send it to them.
No, with them not even
on tape
remotely that I'm not technically supposed to send it across state lines. And so I want to talk to you about what this really is. So from an herbal perspective, this is everything. This is our food. It's balancing so every constitution can have it. It takes care of from the head down. It's an herbal antibiotic, an herbal antiviral, an herbal antiseptic. Just eating it is more nutrients than spinach without the oxalates. In all aspects, it's a flippin' yes. My kid's life was saved because of it. And then all the caveats that Bob has put onto it, I'm here to tell you, because we've done so much research on it, that we can really bend all of those rules that we would tell you to be a proper clinician, that I've gone so far as to separate all the parts. I have the seeds tinctured in every solvent. I have the leaves tinctured in every solvent. The flowers tinctured in every solvent. The inner bark. I recently did an experiment with Bob the freak, like 100%, and that I can get near him and he's like, oh, I feel your energy. Like, he can eat a tiny little thing and be like, ooh, what was that? And tell me everything about it. So I've done this experiment with him where I've taken the inner bark right above the root but below the first set of nodes, because that's a separate part many times in our harvesting. And I've peeled it off into pieces and been like, here, eat that, and stood there. Okay, here, eat that, and stood there. And here, eat that, and stood there. And just from that bark, from that little space above a root, he's been like, oh, I can feel that. Like, he can feel the thing he said isn't possible, which is the extra energy that he was getting from it. And he can eat mawang like it's crazy. And so that's definitely an ephedra plant. And so my point is, it's just a yes and something you should know, and it literally is a weed that farmers will pay you to take from them because it gets wrapped up in the goats' bellies, things like that. If any of you guys know where all of them are and want to say...
Stay away from our field.
I was going to say, the reason why this is like this is because I'm like, don't mow here, stop.
Yeah, the city's been really good about, they've created some no-mow areas like this, literally because they saw us doing these herb walks.
And the other thing is, as I passed it around to you, just like doctrine of signature, just like the hard parts in a hard process, another rule that we need to know when harvesting is that if the seed and flower are present, it's going to have a really intense component when you're eating it. So if you eat a lettuce that has gone to flower, it's very, very bitter. Good medicine, shitty food. For a normal person, they're not going to want to eat that. So the one that got passed around is very bitter because this is all in seed right now. It tastes just delightful when the seed's not on it. It's just yummy and good. It's just correct. All of the things that we said internally are topical as well. That mucilaginous property, that anti-infective property, right onto a burn, right onto a skin, rubbing onto an ant bite, anything that's inflammation and out of balance, it's going to bring it into balance and soothe it. So that's an important thing to know about that. Every time that we're sick and we can't clear the phlegm, it's going to help us clear the phlegm and pull that bronchitis pain that you have from coughing, pull that and soothe that down and start knitting it back together. If you have too much phlegm, it's going to help to have that pass and dry it out. It's balancing. It's going to find which way it needs to help you. And it's nourishing you at the same time. Back at the turn of the century, when we would die of the consumption, that was tuberculosis. We would die from coughing. We wouldn't die from the tuberculosis. We would die from just too much energy expelled and us not able to feed that back in. This feeds you as it's doing that. This is our everything plant here. This is in this culture.
If
you were to make a remedy with it because you can't have it across state lines with plant, is it okay to share that remedy with somebody on a different state
Okay,
line?
so here's
We're not lawyers.
Hold on. We're gonna do. We do teach about the laws, and so I'm gonna say what I'm supposed to say, and then give you a hypothetical.
Don't use the federal mail.
So it is
That would be a felony.
100% illegal
Back me up on
to
that
pass anything that has ephedrine in it or ephedra anywhere. It's governmentally regulated. Sudafed, Advil cold and sinus, NyQuil. That's why you have to sign out that. So this is that, right?
Hey, Julie.
Nobody knows anything. You walk around with this, that's not gonna matter. Nobody knows a single thing. Put wire weed on the bottle. Nobody knows what the hell that is. I have hypothetically had multiple felonies driving from state to state to state to events all of the time. I have doctors calling me for it. It's one of our key component for Lyme and Lyme co-infection, even 10 years after. It'll chase down a spirochete like nobody's business. So
look
Lyme
what I just spotted.
Lyme and Lyme co-infection. Yeah, 100%.
So if somebody had Lyme disease taking this.
Yes, and yeah, well,
So-
it's in a duyao, a douay. I don't say it right.
Duyao.
It's in a duyao that we've talked about and we'll talk about. I'll send you.
So-
Like it's in your slides.
So one of the things, it is about matching a plant to an individual. So like the magnolia is very dry, and this is very wet. And so the idea, when we talk about energetics, and every traditional culture has some version of energetics, we use the idea of hot and cold, wet and dry, deficient and excess. Why are some people like, yeah, I'm ready to go, and they're screaming and shouting and red face and guzzling food and water? Other people are going like, oh my God, I'm dying, it's Tuesday.
Get some food.
And so
Entire food.
how we understand the nature of that individual allows us to match the plants to match that person's imbalances and constitution. Yo.
For the roots, should we try to stay away from those with high blood pressure?
So the stock answer, especially for you, because you are a clinician, you're already practicing, and you're going on to seeing people in the
it's
clinic.
everywhere.
The stock answer is absolutely we need to be cautious of it. Because of this, because it's bala and it's tridoshic, it tends to not be a problem. Whereas if we took the mawang, it tends to be a problem.
Yeah,
It's only
mahwang
for
with
certain people.
would be an
Yeah,
issue with hypertension.
This one tends
yeah.
to not be, especially if we really manipulate the parts that we're using, so
Look
that
what I
it's
found.
lesser and just we do it a little bit at a time, for sure.
Now, excuse me, did you show us two plants just now?
They're the same.
They're the same.
They're the same genus, different
Yeah.
species, but used interchangeably.
And that's why I want to.
So they're used interchangeably.
Yes, yeah, we don't care. And here too, in other countries, it's amusing. So when I get to go to South America, that we go to the highlands and the lowlands and everything in between, and I have you there moving in and out of climates and countries. It's the amusing thing that I'll just pull stuff off the ground and eat it because I recognize what it is. In other countries where this is a cedar, whatever cedar that is, exactly the same. Yeah, 100%. And they've watched me do it.
I was
going
going
to
to say, I found a cedar root as long as my arm,
in
big around
South
as my
America.
thumb in Ecuador.
The
It's
other
amazing.
thing I want to point out, just because I see you guys doing it, if we're not talking about something, it's for a reason. I'm just letting you know.
And-
There's lots
and I
of
would
things
also-
here that I'm just pushing it to the side because of the talking.
One of the things I would tell you also is just our herb walks are different from other people's herb walks, not better or worse,
Just different.
but we're herbalists, not botanists. So there's a bunch of plants I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, got to look that up someday and see if I remember. Or I learned things in the Bahamas when I was a teenager. I don't remember. I'm like, I don't remember what that's for. So it's a big difference. It's good to go on a herb walk with a botanist, but they may not actually know or have certainly ever used it. So
we have several botany type people that we will tell you to go to their herb walk for. That one mistell you medicine all of the time. So they'll ID the plant proper, but they mistell you the medicine all of the time. Or two, refer to us for the medicine, but only just tell you about what it says in a book. And vice versa. If you have somebody, like we will refer you to Green Dean and Eat the Weeds, he is a botanist from U of S.
and a wild forager who kicks
and
ass.
so if he says, nope, I think this is that, more than likely that's the case, but he'll turn right to one of us in a walk and be like, what do you think? Because he knows the medicine side of that. For me, the medicines we're talking about, like in this park, are my heritage medicine, and probably in the world, Bob and I have the most experience with this and another plant in the world, and so no one's going to talk me out of this. He's wrong. If he's telling me something that is not what I'm saying, he's wrong. Like I know from experience and from a lifetime that this is
So
wrong.
Green Dean.
yeah,
Green Dean
yeah.
and Eat the Woods.
I don't know if that's his birth name or not. So this one is not on the list, but it kicks ass.
We just found it. That's
Yeah, I was like, oh, look what's at my feet.
And
so,
pass that for them.
Yeah. So I will say this tastes like shit. This is called bitter melon. It is appropriately named. For any of you from Jamaica, it's called surasi. Yeah. It's also known in Puerto Rico as cunde amor. And this one is very appropriate to tear off the smallest bit of leaf, put it in your mouth, and spit it out because it's gross. So bitter melon, you've all seen this growing on a fence. It's got this yellow, orangey, spiky fruit that's about this big. It opens up. It has these red seeds on the inside. It is a relative, same genus, different subspecies actually, as the Chinese bitter melon that they'll put into a stir fry. Like you can go into an Asian market and find this warty looking cucumber.
Was that right here?
Yeah, it was just right here. Okay. This warty looking cucumber that you would actually put into a stir fry. It's primarily used for lowering blood sugar to the point of really powerful. If you were to do too much of it, it will drop your blood sugar dramatically. It's funny. So I grew up in the Bahamas, and I remember I think I got literally all of it. Down in the Bahamas, a lot of the folks would say it's like you need to eat 3 leaves a day to cool your blood. Now I promise you, down in the Bahamas where I grew up on the Out Islands, they didn't know what blood heat was, but they used that language of energetics that they were too hot, whether it was menopause, whether it was blood sugar or hypertension. They knew that eating a couple of those leaves every day would help to cool them off in the hot islands that we lived in. So that idea of somebody who's always guzzling the iced drinks and can't keep it under control, it's very appropriate. It's been used for everything from leukemia to malaria to pretty much it kills anything. Anything that got that on them, if any of you tasted that, you'd die too. So I had a woman from Cuba. She was in her 90s, and she came in. She had really bad nerve pain, neuropathy in her feet because basically she had out-of-control diabetes and was not taking her medication, wasn't monitoring her blood sugar, and she really liked guava cakes and jelly. So it was not helping her blood sugar, and she wanted me to come in and do some stuff. And so I did acupuncture like 3 times, tried to talk to her about diet, except she didn't speak English, so her daughter would come and translate for me. And after the 3rd time, there was no improvement. I literally think she kept coming back for me to rub her feet with just oil, and she liked getting her feet rubbed. And that was fine. I was like, but if you don't, and she basically said, I don't want your weird Chinese herbs. And I'm like, all right. So I was like, I need to come up with something for this woman because she wasn't going to change her diet. She's 92. She'd do whatever the hell she wants. So I asked her daughter, I was like, ask her where she grew up in Cuba. And I do this for a lot of people from different countries. It's like, if you grew up in the city, you may not know anything. You went to the doctor if you got sick. If you grew up in the country, especially somebody 90 years ago, there wasn't a lot of doctors running around Cuba. And so if you grew up in the country, you always had a bush doctor, a medicine person there that would help. And she's like, oh no, I grew up in the mountains. I was like, do you know what bush medicine is? She's like, I think it was her grandmother was the person everybody in the village and the surrounding areas came to for help, for medicine. I was like, if I give you something your grandmother would have given you, will you take it? She was like, yeah. And when I showed her daughter, I literally went in the back of the clinic and pulled it off a fence out there. And I showed her daughter, she's like, oh my God, this is all over my fence. I was like, 3 leaves a day. The same thing I learned as a kid down in the Bahamas. And so those 3 leaves a day literally started to regulate her blood sugar. The color in her feet, the feeling in her feet started to come back within a month or 2. She didn't change her diet. She still ate all the wrong stuff, but that helped to process those sugars properly out of her body.
Okay, so Bob, do you want to... This is just new for ingredients.
Do we want to go over on the bridge there and find Bidens and Dewberry? We've got 20 minutes left.
Massive Bidens here, but I do want to take them to Dewberry.
All right, let's go over there.
Oxalis, because everyone's grossed out by what you've been feeding
Yeah,
them.
I know. Let's go over here.
I'll get some oxalis.
Yeah, you don't have to walk through the bushes, but yeah. We're gonna go over there. This one's just prettier. Grab a couple to hand around.
I'll go down there and get the oxalis if you want, or no?
Nah, let's hold off. We might see it if we walk around. I'll take a couple. I'll take a couple more Bidens, hon.
Okay. You want more Bidens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to pull these.
Right now, just look at it.
Yeah. Oh, there's some nicer looking ones over in the sun over there. So.
Hey, anybody who has like roast bitter in their mouth and they want to get rid of it, eat one of those. Does anybody have that problem? This is Comelina. It's blue dayflower, but it will stop that from happening. That's what I just brought over. It's yummy. Essential fatty acids.
So, this pretty little flower, I know all of you have this in your yard. Even if you have the most perfectly manicured yard in the world, you still got this growing somewhere. This is Biden's alba, beggar's tick, Spanish needle, lots of cool names. It's got these pretty daisy-like flowers. These are actually beautiful. This is like the most perfect. Usually they're a little rattier looking, like those are a little scrappier. They'll have the two-pronged sticky things that get caught in your socks and in your dog and your cat and everything else under the sun. So this is food and medicine. I first learned this as food, where we just pull the leaves off and throw them into a cooking pot, like any kind of greens, and just cook them up. Super nutritious, super yummy. And then I learned that you could make a spit poultice out of it. Can you grab the...
Because everybody wants to be spit on by Bob.
And so,
what do you need?
I just need my hand, yeah. So yes, you can chew it up, but you don't even have to chew it up. You can literally just mash it up in your hand and use it topically. So if you get a bug bite, if you get a little scratch while you're gardening, just putting it on there will take the redness out. It will reduce the swelling and the itching, which tells us about its energetics. So this is cooling. Oh, and Chinese is Xin Feng Sao. Where'd you go?
Xin Feng Sao.
So this one is in your medical book. So it's so funny. We've had so many stupid stories about the Bidens. It's ridiculous. We had we gave a lecture on herb drug interactions down at the pharmacy school that's over in Bradenton, and they were so intrigued because we brought a bunch of these plants in from the outside and said, this is where your pharmaceutical drugs come from. And this has pharmaceutical-like actions, like antihistamine action. And so they were like, we talked about going for herb walks. So they were like, oh my God, you got to take us for an herb walk. So we rescheduled for like a month or so later. And I was like, I don't know my way around Bradenton. Just find us a park. We'll find something to talk about. And we get out there.
I'm shaking my head because these people have not seen the light of day.
I was going to say, this was city meat.
Yeah.
And they study a lot.
They were translucent and glowing white, and vitamin D issues.
And they took us out to a place that was pure swamp, like mangrove, swamp, stagnant, just mosquitoes with saddles on them.
Hadn't been to a park
since
1955.
And everybody was getting eaten. I was even getting eaten up. And we couldn't find any of the beautyberry to act as insect repellent. And this one woman, she was showing up with silver dollar size raised, painful things from a stupid mosquito. And we were sitting here talking about the bites. And they're like, and you know, I'm one who just like go for it. Like I hadn't tested that in ages. I'd never seen a bite that bad before from a stupid mosquito. I was like, we're sitting here talking about it. I was like, yeah, just put it on half of that. Let's see what happens. And so we mashed it up for her, and she literally put it like it was half her arm. She put it on half, and we kept talking and telling the stories. And maybe 2-3 minutes later, we were like, what's it look like? And she took it away. It was literally like a line was drawn down.
In her handprint.
All of the swelling was gone.
Where she was putting it.
All of the redness was gone.
Yeah.
Where the other side was still all jacked up. Same bite. And we actually had one of our students did that in class recently, that she had been eaten up the night before. And we have like 5 or 6 herbs. We say the same kind of thing for bug bites. And so she circled the bites and wrote down which one, and she put them all on and then gave us like a little mini lecture at the end going, ooh, this one felt good right in the front end, but this one did the better long term. It was really cool.
So the cedar that we were talking about, I said there was a doyal to it, it's this.
This is the companion
This is the
plant.
sister.
So this one,
lime and lime co-infection.
I always talk about, don't be friends with an herbalist, we're dangerous.
Because we'll feed you stuff.
So I was asked to do the teach-in, you know, where you go into elementary schools and you tell kids how cool your job is. And so I said, let's bring a crazy herbalist into a bunch of 3rd graders. I was like, sure. So I went around to the schoolyard and I pulled up a bunch of weeds for them and came in. 3rd graders are not adventurous when it comes to taste.
Yeah.
And so when I was like, here, eat this weed, they were like, get the heck away from me. But there was this one kid in class the whole time, he's cough, 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 cough. And they're apologizing. It was mildly disruptive. And they were like, don't worry, he's not contagious, pre-COVID. And it's like it's this cough that he's had. He's already been through antibiotics, blah, blah, blah. So he was the only kid who ate this plant. And so my 15 minutes of fame were up. I'm walking down the hallway to the next classroom, and the teacher comes running down the hallway. Bob, what'd you give to little Johnny? I'm like, crap. Anaphylactic shock. Anybody can be allergic to anything, you know. I hope my malpractice is up to date. And I go, why? What's wrong? And he's like, he stopped coughing. I was like, his meds must have kicked in. And I got a letter written in third grader a couple of weeks later that said, thank you so much for fixing my cough. And every once in a while we clean the office and I find it again. And it was fascinating because I didn't know it for cough. And so we did a little research and we found this reference from an anthropologist from the 1700s who's like, ooh, the native people use this plant for cough. That doesn't tell us anything because think of all the different types of cough there is. There's weak cough, chronic cough, acute cough,
wet cough,
green,
dry cough,
yellow,
green,
red,
yellow,
you know?
yeah.
So the idea that it was just
Title.
for cough doesn't tell us anything. So we started to experiment on our friends. And what we figured out is although it helps with a lot of different types of cough, it is so specific for that lingering cough after a cold and flu with clear and white phlegm that a teaspoon to a tablespoon of this eaten up fresh will eliminate that cough 80% of the time within 15 minutes.
So,
usually less.
So it's important, like this is a whole thing of like thinking about the efficacy
And that's not in your medical
of herbal
This is,
medicine.
but that, what I just told you. Is
When
not.
people say herbal medicine doesn't work, let's use this plant. So if you had a wet cough and you wanted this to stop your cough and you said herbal medicine doesn't work, I'm going to try this here. It's going to actually make you cough more because it's going to make you try to get the phlegm out. And you'll be like, no, it doesn't work. It's like, no, what's your body? You didn't ask me to make the cough stop. You asked me to heal it. Yeah. So it's really important to understand that if you're eating this and you start coughing.
No, it will fix it. When you do it right, you will start coughing.
And if you start
coughing,
when you eat it, you got phlegm that needs to be moved out. Something's going on. Something needs to be dealt with. And so this is definitely a sister to the other one. We would use it in combination as herbal, antiviral, antibiotic. It would be a topical pain reliever. It would definitely, everything he just said, internal, external. You had a bug bite, obviously it's going to bring that red down. You could use it as a wound wash. We've used it in pink eye for a pink eye wash, like an ophthalmic. It is just a yes. And again, spinach without the oxalates. Like literally the government was going to make a cash crop in the grocery stores out of it and decided they couldn't because it was so prevalent as a weed. Like it was researched for that. And so harvesting without the flower and seed, you'll have a better taste for sure. Question?
My grandparents and other elderly people used to be talking about some kind of cough, whooping cough.
Yeah,
I thought they were saying whooping, like it's whooping.
No, it's whooping. It's the sound that you're making when you're doing it. So it's cough that has gone to inflammation of the bronchial passages and caused that like barking sound. It's super, super hard to get rid of because what happens is so lung here gets red and inflamed and pushed in, and it makes it so you can't get it out. So you feel like you're choking even though it's right in here. So traditionally we would have humidifier or gotten in the shower with the child and thrown a bundle of plants at the bottom of the hot shower to have it bronchial dilating, to have it reducing the inflammation and opening up for the kid to be able to breathe the moisture because the inflammation has dried everything up and kept the infection stuck in their lungs. You can die from that. It's a really serious thing.
Yeah. So I used this one, I've used it on kids as young as 2 years old where I actually made a tea in it because they weren't going to eat the nasty thing. And it worked. I've not used it on younger kids because I haven't been given the opportunity.
I've used it for dogs, birds, snakes, and cats. And the other thing, it's my first herbal memory, and I'm guessing I was around 18 months old because I was in my grandfather's boots, and the boots were taller than my legs. So I was like, oh, I must have been like this size. And I had a bee sting. We were beekeepers. I had a bee sting, and I can clearly remember him spitting on me, and that was the part I remember that I was horrified that he spit on me. And so he just rubbed it on it, and we went on about our day. And what I always like to say is, if you have a 2-year-old in your life and they got stung by a bee, what would you have to do to make them stop crying? And I just remember it being just a thing. Like I can clearly remember I was getting to play in the honey that was coming out. That's why I can remember it. The boots and the honey is what I remember. And so he just rubbed it right on the bee sting and we went on about our day. And I was like, man, that's good stuff when you think of it that way.
So remember, this is both food and medicine.
Did anybody eat it? Yeah, well, I know you guys don't count. Yeah, it's like, so, yeah.
One of the things that's important to recognize, like if you ever grew lettuce, when the lettuce comes up, you're clipping it, it's super yummy, right? And then all of a sudden we do what we call bolts. It starts to go into flower, right? The center stalk comes out. Now we go, oh, it's no good, it's gotten bitter, we throw it away.
And that's its best medicine.
So For food, it's best to harvest this before it goes into flower, but you got to be a little bit better at your botany, because once it flowers, and that's how most of us identify, oh, we know that little ratty looking daisy thing. So it's got a square stem.
So if you roll the stem in your hand, it goes click, 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 click.
And some of you would say that's 3 leaves. This is
1 leaf.
1 leaf.
So that's a petiole with 3 leaves attached, so it's 1 leaf.
So if we can start to recognize this before it goes into flower, then it's yummy.
And the edge of it is not truly serrated. It's called denticle. It curves up and hooks in and curves up and hooks in, and that's another way to identify it.
So it's starting...
Maybe.
There's another flower over there.
It doesn't look quite right.
No, it doesn't look. No, it doesn't look quite right.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's see.
It's one of those things we need to start to recognize that it's not just a big sea of
No, it's not.
It's unique things with unique characteristics, shapes, edges, and all of that kind of thing.
Okay.
We probably got room for one more.
Yeah, but I wanted to say something about that one. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I don't know what it is now.
What's the name of it again?
It's bite. Oh, that's what it is. So it's yeah, and it's on your sheet. It's on your sheet. Something I want you guys to know about this too. The only people that write about this, like that's indigenous medicine. It's not in Medicas. The only people that write about it are people who have researched it in a lab, and they have no idea. So they've researched a single kind. Please don't get hooked up on that with these plants, these particular ones we're showing you. Any Bidens is correct. It doesn't have to be Alba. It can be Pelosa. It can be Bipinetta. It doesn't matter. I've helped with the U of F Extension Center, the Aggie department, and heard the botanists arguing that they don't even think there's different kinds, and then turn right around and tell everybody there is.
So, selfless plug. So there's a YouTube channel where we do this a lot and talk about individual plants and all of that.
We probably have a talk just about this.
Yeah, well, we do. And we posted it recently. We actually, you did it actually. And so we put Biden.
Oh.
And I almost got thrown off the internet because I thought it was a political statement that I posted in there.
Because it's Biden's, right.
What it's referring to, and this is where Latin comes in fun, you know. So, bi, dense, to dentist, this dense is teeth. So it's describing the seed, that two-pronged thingy that gets stuck in your pant legs. Alabaster is white. And so most of your Biden's flowers are yellow. And this one is white. And so it's saying the 2-teeth white flower is a description. It's the Latin genus and species. So it's describing to you the actual plant itself.
So if you find the yellow one, it's going to be more bitter, more directed towards the bottom half of your body, and will help with biosecretions. So it just has a little bit of a slant because of the yellow.
And real quick, I used to see like bees around this one a lot.
Oh yes, it's our number 1 pollinator in Florida. It's the number 1 pollinator we have, the Bidens. Yeah. The other thing is I misidentified it on that talk as a Lamiaceae. It's an Asteraceae. I'm just telling you, I was tired.
On a bite, which part of it do you?
Any of it. It doesn't matter. You could take this right there and go.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
And just leave it sitting.
Yeah.
To get rid of the bitter.
Yeah, the Comelina. Yeah, the blue dayflower. It's food. It's any part of it is fine. You could just take a bite of that right there. The bigger they are, the juicier they are, and it acts like. Can I steal one of them?
Yeah,
so watch. Hold on. I'll go back to you. Watch. So it acts like aloe. I can't squeeze it out of there. So that. Like it gets like sappy and sticky. It does, there you go. There you go. See it? So it does that in the internals as well. So if you have like stomach issues, it's a good essential fatty acids. I put the purple flowers on like a cacao cake, and it balances out like the dryness from chocolate. And so it's something just to know it's food. And when it gets like this, blue dayflower, Comelina, and I'll write it in like when we post, I'll write it up in there. And if you guys email, anything we added on, I'll write up. Because he's adding a bunch of stuff on. He's taking you to poison ivy right now. Oh, bacopa. Yeah, I know, for sure. They will. They're bullies. They will overtake it. But if they get fat, they're yummy, like a food. Like a asparagus. Think of it like that.
Are they medicinal in the same way the leaves are?
Yeah. They're all of its medicine separate and together. Absolutely. But think aerial parts in a softer part for a softer problem.
I was in the Army for a couple of years. I was stationed at Fort Benning.
So you're going to have to either yell or hold this.
Yeah, I got a big mouth. I can yell.
Okay.
So I was at Fort Benning. I was really into survival stuff. You can't tell that, I know. And so I would literally get a canteen of water and some matches, and I'd go out and spend a couple of days out.
There's lots of poison ivy around here, so you guys be careful.
And I hate it's embarrassing. I was a sniper back in the day. And so what I found was those really small minnows, if you take the paper off of a cigarette filter, wipe it on your lips, and you get skin cells on there, attach it to like a vine or a branch, you put it down, the minnows will come up and they'll eat the skin cells off of there, catch the fibers in their gills, and you can pull them out and you make fish stew out of that. I would literally, like, that would be the last hour of the day, I'd catch like 20 or 30 of those. It was enough protein to get through for a couple days. So.
So remember we were talking about the Cordifolia and the presentation of the stem being like our spinal cord. And I said there's another plant that's going to fit right up in there, and that's its joyao, its sister, its pairing plant. This is it that we're about to talk about.
Don't eat this. And I only say that is look where it's growing.
The water.
You do not want to eat anything that comes out of this creek.
I literally poisoned myself accidentally because I was, I was showing somebody at a big talk, and I had run home to get some stuff for us. We had clean version and we had that, and I just had it in my hand and literally had to be like, hey, I need you to go talk to Bob for a minute as I'm like feeling my airway close up because we're in this water. You can take it home and plant it and clean it up.
That's what I was going to say. Can I take some home and plant it?
Yeah, 100%.
So what we've done with this in the past is we'll plant this. We'll get 6 inches of new growth. Then we pull off the new growth and transplant that. And then we feel safe.
What I do normally is I'll pull it and put it in a cup of water, just like you'd grow an avocado on your windowsill, and it'll sit in the kitchen, and I'll change the water out for a couple days, and every once in a while I'll break one of them and smell them. You can definitely smell like gasoline or diesel fuel, and eventually it'll go lighter and lighter and lighter, and as soon as I feel like I can put it in my mouth, maybe just 5 days, we'll transplant it out. It's fine after 30 days. What did you say this is called? Bacopa. So it's on your sheet. It's B-A-C. Yes.
Yeah, that's Bacopa there as well. So
B-A-C-O-P-A.
One of the things that's really important to think about as we're exploring these plants is also where it grows. So you notice that the Bacopa is on the edge of the bank, but not in the center. So Bacopa will not grow past, on a best day, 6 inches. Usually it's out of the water on the edge, maybe 2 or 3 inches. You'll find this in a low spot in your yard sometimes. It doesn't have a scent, so there's no, it might smell green, but there's no minty smell to it. There is a look-alike, also edible, that grows only in the deeper water, past 6 inches, that has a similar leaf, but smells, it's water hyssop. Yeah, so it's kind of minty. Both are usable, but different purposes.
Yeah, and for sure, Bacopa is one of those ones that you should know for your brain.
This is well known in Ayurvedic medicine. It's called Brahmi, one of the many plants. Renee just said that before. One of the many plants called Brahmi, but Brahmi being that Brahma bull, that that most powerful deity and so forth. So this is considered a superior, powerful herb. It's specific for brain health, to reduce inflammation, and to improve your brain stuff.
So that little piece right there fits up in the crux of that Cordifolia. So it's like the hemispheres of your brain, and as the spine comes down from the Cordifolia stem, this fits right up where your medulla oblongata would be, which is going to be the space that makes you who you are, like the deep essence of who you are. So it helps to improve that whole entire function. It fits with it perfectly.
The wet and the dry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how we change our formulation based on that.
This is more moistening. The Cordifolia was drier.
Yes. So would the Cordifolia, but yes, absolutely. And we were talking about the Florida wood betony as well. Those as a try together are unbelievable in just settling down frazzled, sporadic, shooting off nerves, for sure. So when you misfire, very, very specific, mucilaginous to the gel in between and your gap, your synaptic gap, and getting it to move straight versus shooting off.
Yeah, because I know cannabinoids are good for brain recovery.
100%, yeah.
And that's probably a booster, right?
So anything in the Rosaceae family, not just like cannabinoids are in the Rosaceae family, so you should probably be using hops, but you in particular, you need more moisturizing. You need your myelin sheath to be gel more.
So the reason Renee said that is he's thin and wiry, and so tending towards more dry, where somebody else who's like overly oily or overweight, anything like that, that's going to more likely be somebody who's needs more drying.
So we would change our portions based on that. So we'd get a drying effect from the Cordifolia. This would be a moisturizing effect. So we would add more to one to the other. So I would be more inclined to have this for you than not.
Yeah.
So I was actually at the FASOMA, the acupuncture conference. We were getting ready to teach, and there was one of the vendors was an Ayurvedic guy. And so I brought this plant in. I was going to talk about it in one of my classes. And so I showed it to him. He goes, "Oh, my old friend Brahmi." He got so excited. I was like, I wanted to know from him, how does he use it? Not what I read in a book or what I've used it for. And so I basically held his feet to the fire on that. And what he said was that they would always get it as children. They would grow it fresh in a pot. And that they would trim enough off to do like a level teaspoon that they would grind up fresh, give it to the children before they went to school, so that they would be more focused and attentive and have increased memory.
Like attention deficit.
But they would never give it past 2 p.m. because when they got out of school,
they
didn't want them sitting there focused and attentive. They wanted them to go out and raise hell and be,
and play. Be active. It might cause some circular thinking at night, like cause you to think through the night and through your dreams, because it's really for accuracy. So it's going to clear away some phlegm for sure. Hey, do you want to walk around and
peppergrass?
Well, right there is the oxalis. Do you care about that at all?
Yeah, let's do peppergrass.
Okay, so we're going to get to it. So the other yeah, I thought it was the beginning of a cattail too. Hey, Bob. No, that's the spiderwort's over there. But I got to tell you that you're going to run out of batteries, so you might want to say a sign off before that happens.
How much have we got left?
8, I think.
Oh, 12.
Yeah. And
we'll put it on YouTube, actually.
Our YouTube channel has individual, like I'll sit and just talk about one of these as long as people ask questions. So each one of these.
Oh, thank you.
Will be that way, for sure.
You lost it at Sweetwater the other day.
Yeah, right. I did find it. Yeah, Renee will throw some at you. Those will grow if you just put them in some water. Oh, and I'm going to put a caution. Be careful coming up. You're good there. Don't anybody walk over here. This is all poison ivy right in here. Leaves of 3, leave them be. Poison ivy all through there. Don't walk through that. Oh man. Where is it? I know it's here. Never find them when you need it. Oh, I'm gonna find it. Ooh. Well, we're going to do this instead. Oh, this is even better. This is not on your list. We walked right by this and I was like, oh my God, how did I not see this? I was looking for this. I know, that's even funnier that it does look like it's being cared for. It's a weed.
Isn't it a random?
Yeah. And you see all these yellow flowers? That's all Ceta. Yeah. Yeah, so that opens up for half the day, but they've mowed it over, so it's only this high, but the root might be this long on that. So you don't be deceived by the short stature. Yeah, right. Well, I couldn't find a good-looking pepper grass, so I was like, this popped into my vision. So it was. Nope, this is correct. This is our last one.
Callaloo.
So this is amaranth, and so if you've ever had like amaranth flake cereal or something like that, and here, hold this for a second.
It's an ancient grain.
So this is the one protein-rich grain in the Americas.
If you guys are from any kind of island, callaloo.
And this is callaloo in Jamaica.
Oh, I miss callaloo so much. I need a field of it.
So this is the flower, and the little black dots are all the seeds that are rich in essential fatty acids, your omega-3, 6,
It's so yummy, you guys.
And you can actually grind this up, dry it, and grind it up, and make flour out of it.
But that whole
this
thing,
is how we get an amaranth flake.
That whole thing would be in a pot, though.
Amaranth bread.
Yeah, amaranth bread.
That's this.
And it adds protein to your food.
Mm-hmm. A little purslane.
Oh, geez. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So all parts of this plant are edible from the roots up.
The stem, you know, you guys need to kind of pull the stem out of like a collard green. You don't have to do this with this one. Once you chop it up, it's so good. So like in a pot,
it can
some
be
fat
used
back.
fresh or cooked. So we can eat it. It's a very mild flavor. Even though this isn't flour, it's not bitter the way some of our other plants are. So it's very mild. If it wasn't in flour, it would actually be sweet.
Anytime we have the deep red stems present, like this is light red, anytime we have the deep red stems present, that's a blood nourisher, and it definitely helps with stagnant blood or blood nourishing for sure. So it's just so yummy and good for you.
I knew this from the islands mostly as food. It was considered one of the most nutritious things because of the protein content of it, and it was just a normal green to serve with just everything.
Yeah.
It has lysine in it.
No, I did not know it was high in lysine.
So that means that it would be a really strong antiviral. Yeah.
So there's it's funny, and when I was in Ecuador, there was a bunch of different species. Some are green, some are red, some have thorns, some don't. So sometimes there are thorns. All of them can be used for food and medicine.
Pigweed.
The red ones were specific for nourishing the blood, so recovering from the menses, childbirth, surgery, long illness. The green ones were considered cooling and could be used both topically for a fever.
They're so good.
Or internally to cool the body off to help. And any of my herbal is not diaphoretic, so not where it makes you break a sweat, but literally cools the body off, and I'm going to guess slows that ability for viruses or bacteria to
But it's one of those things that when you have medicines that just push and push and push, like a diaphoretic, they're going to push the heat out. If they're not feeding you, your ability yourself to fight it might be taken into a challenge. There might be a secondary infection based on that, where something like this feeds you as it's helping you to move that blood through or move that infection through.
Because this does look like somebody planted it and is caring for it.
We're not going to pass it.
I don't want to butcher it, but pull a little leaf off of here.
Or down at the bottom. Down at the bottom, there's some small ones, but it's so good and such a weed.
So as usual, we didn't get through the 110 other things we wanted to talk to you about because it's a fast 2 hours always. But, we always like to wrap it up. If you didn't get a handout, if you came later,
we're going to walk back with you.
But please do check out the YouTube channel, subscribe. We had a little hiatus from that. We're going to get back on it and try to get one out a week.
Maybe today.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Tradition School of Herbal Studies. There we go. If any of you want to learn more, do that. Go with other people to learn about the herb walks and edible medicinal plants.
Eat the Weeds. Green Dean is a good one.
Eattheweeds.com.
He's a forager.
If you want to continue on and I want to learn everything about herbal medicine so I can babble endless gibberish too, we do have an herbal program, both Western and Chinese. There's kind of like the starting point for the Western is the Western Herbal 101. We've got one coming up in like 2 weeks, I think, and then one in February, and then some off in the distance. I think everybody ought to do that. It's everything your grandmother used to know.
The conversations that I was having where I was like, well, no, you would make it this way, or, oh, that's a doctrine of signature, that gets cleared up in the 101. It definitely is to keep you out of the Walgreens. Like, there's no reason to go to a drugstore. You can handle a fever, a cough, an infection, a scrape.
But there's a, come to the herb school, learn crazy Chinese herbs, learn crazy Western herbs.
Yeah?
Have you guys heard that the seeds pop like tiny popcorn?
Yes, and they're very, very nutty. When you roast them, they're wonderful.
The reality is, you know, if you're like, no, I'll let you guys do it. We do have a clinical practice there on Central and 25th. Acupuncture and herbal therapies. The herb school, price is an issue. Our students need practice. So we have student clinic 3 nights a week. We have acupuncture interns from East West College in Sarasota that come on Monday nights, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we have our herb students practicing either Western herbal medicine or Chinese herbal medicine. But, you know, selfless plug, that's enough of that crap. The reality is, our goal isn't to make, I don't think, some of you are already wild foragers, 1 or 2 of you, hopefully we sparked an excitement for you. But the reality is, most of you probably will never wild forage one of these weird plants again.
Just keep coming.
The reason we do this, the reason we got up early so that we could make some wayusa and talk crazy talk to you about these plants, our goal is that you start to change your perspective, that you start to stop seeing Bidens as this weed, that the ceta is no longer something that just screws up your weed
or
whacker.
going to get a capsule,
But
or
you start to understand that in your backyard is food and medicine, that literally the earth provides everything that we need, and we start to understand our environment in a new way, that it's not a big field of green or a bunch of things that just have to be mowed throughout the summer, but literally that nature's provided all of this diversity, all of these unique plants that provide nourishment, provide medicine.
Just in the city park.
And we change the way we see nature in our yard, front and back. So, so thank you all so much for giving up your first day of your new year. Hopefully this takes it in the right direction for the rest of your year until next
say
time.
bye. You gotta say bye. You're turning
Bye
off.
for all y'all folks who are hanging out. You missed the herb walk.
Okay, what were you saying?
Y'all gonna do another herb walk?